Passengers are stranded.
Atlanta-based Delta has started resuming some flight departures after the Federal Aviation Administration issued a ground stop for several major U.S. airlines. But thousands of travelers at Atlanta's airport are stuck, with many venting on social media showing pictures of completely blue screens with no flight information displayed early this morning. Atlanta Airport spokesperson Andy Gobeil says more customer service agents are roaming through the crowds to assist passengers.
We're a busy airport. We're an efficient airport, and we are able to, for the most part, roll the punches. So it is busy. There are lines down there, but it is not at all chaotic.
Cybersecurity experts say the scale of this global outage is unprecedented. For NPR News, I'm Lily Oppenheimer in Atlanta.
It's been a week of wildly different fortunes for the Republican and Democratic presidential campaigns. NPR's Asma Khalid reports that as Republicans unite behind their nominee, Democrats appear increasingly divided.
Former President Donald Trump accepted the Republican nomination for president last night.
I am running to be president for all of America, not half of America.
Meanwhile, President Biden is facing a political crisis with more calls for him to drop out of the presidential race, though his campaign insists he is and will be the Democratic nominee. Biden has become increasingly isolated in recent days, both politically and now physically, in quarantine after catching COVID this week. Asma Khalid, NPR News.
The American Psychiatric Association has found that over 70% of respondents are anxious about the U.S. election. As NPR's Ritu Chatterjee reports, psychologists say there are ways to manage one's mental health.
It's normal to feel stressed and anxious leading up to the election, says psychologist Crystal Lewis. She's with the National Institute of Mental Health.
There's a range of emotions that people experience that can go from fear to anger to feeling stressed out to feeling extremely sad and fearful of the future.
She says if those feelings linger and start to affect one's mood and daily life, it's important to address them. Some people with persistent symptoms might need to see a mental health care provider. Other ways to boost one's mental health are by limiting news and social media, doing activities that are meaningful, and staying physically active and socially connected. Ritu Chatterjee, NPR News.
On Wall Street, the Dow was down 282 points. It's NPR.
Good morning. With the latest from the GBH Newsroom, I'm Henry Santoro. In addition to airports and hospitals being affected by today's global technology outage, the Mass Department of Transportation has announced that some Registry of Motor Vehicle operations are also being impacted. The latest word is that the RMV Customer Service Center appointments are canceled until noon today, as many workstations at the centers are not operational. No vehicle inspections can occur, and credit card payments cannot be made on the registry website. Now, the good news is that if you've got a road test scheduled, those appointments are being held. And Free Beach Day is coming to Cape Cod's National Seashore. What does Free Beach Day mean, you ask? Well, it means there'll be no entrance fee at 6 seashore beaches on Sunday, August 4th. Entrance fees are generally about $25 per car, and people are already making plans to visit all 6 beaches on that day. The free beaches are the Cape Cod National Seashores, Marconi Beach and Wellfleet, Coast Guard Beach and Eastham, Nauset Light Beach, Head of the Meadow Beach in Truro, Herring Cove Beach, and Race Point Beach in P-Town. All great beaches, all free on August 4th. Now, if they could only create a free clam plate day. In sports, the Red Sox start the second half of the season tonight in Los Angeles with a weekend series against the Angels. It's a late game. First pitch is at 10:10. Sunny low 80s today, clear sky upper 60s overnight. Sun clouds 86 tomorrow. It's 78 right now. This is GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from Amazon Business. From small business to big enterprise and everything in between, Amazon Business works to help simplify the supplies buying process. Learn more about smart business buying at amazonbusiness.com. This is NPR.
You're listening to Boston Public Radio. I am Jim Browdy. We're live at the Boston Public Library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. Couple of things. One, the governor will join us here on Wednesday the 31st from noon to 1. And two, if you're feeling a little, I don't know, queasy about the state of the world these days, in about 30 minutes, we're going to have some of the most electrifying music that you have heard in ages right here at the library. So if you're not here, I would come on down. Marjorie's off today. She is back on Monday, sitting in as the business columnist for the Boston Globe and the host of the great Say More with Shirley Leung podcast. That would be Shirley Leung. Hey, Shirley.
Hi, Jim.
Welcome back. It's great to see you.
You didn't scare me away yesterday.
Nor vice versa, actually. So, speaking of scaring people away, last night Donald Trump formally accepted the Republican Party's nomination as their candidate for president. Just days after an attempt on his life with his ear bandaged, Trump portrayed a macho strength that has fueled his populist popularity, aided by the likes of Hulk Hogan, and invoked I guess you call it a divine intervention that saved his life.
I'm not supposed to be here tonight. Not supposed to be here.
Yes, you are! Yes, you are!
Thank you. But I'm not. And I'll tell you, I stand before you in this arena only by the grace of Almighty God. Over the last few days, many people say it was a providential moment. Probably was.
Okay, so Trump was anointed as the GOP nominee in front of his adoring disciples, while Joe Biden is isolating at home while he has COVID, as his fellow Democrats plot his removal. It's okay. Every 6 months or so, Marjorie and I do what we call an anxiety check-in. This is it. Are you anxious? If you are not anxious, what is wrong with you? And if you are anxious, how are you dealing with it? The number's 877-301-8970. I didn't watch Trump live last night, Shirley, because I thought if I watched it on tape this morning where I could fast forward or whatever, I'd feel better. I didn't. Did you watch it?
I didn't. I was so exhausted filling in yesterday. I went to bed at like 8 o'clock, but then I woke up in the middle of the night and I did watch a little bit on YouTube. But it was a 90-minute speech.
90 minutes.
I think I made it through 40 minutes. I fell back asleep, and then I listened to another 20 minutes on the drive-in. So I was hoping that we would have a new Trump. I mean, he dodged.
We did for 10 minutes.
Yeah, we did for about 10 minutes. You know, we dodged a bullet. I thought dodging
Literally.
a bullet would make him a new man, a new, kinder, gentler Trump. But no, it was the same old Trump.
Well, speaking of that, unity lasted for 10 minutes. And then here's what he had to say. We just picked one example, comparing immigrants to cannibals. Here he is.
They're coming from everywhere. They're coming at levels that we've never seen before. It is an invasion indeed, and this administration does absolutely nothing to stop them. They're coming from prisons. They're coming from jails. They're coming from mental institutions and insane asylums. You know, the press is always on me because I say this. Has anyone seen Silence of the Lambs? The late, great Hannibal Lecter. He'd love to have you for dinner. That's insane asylums. They're emptying out their insane asylums.
Well, that's right. He would know insane asylums. And to make you even more anxious, if you're watching CNN last night, I assume people know who Van Jones is. He was a key aide to Barack Obama, a very progressive Democrat, I should say. Here's what he had to say about what he heard at the Republican convention last night.
The last time I was in a convention that felt like this was Obama 2008. There's something happening. If you pull back and look at this thing, strength versus weakness, a bullet couldn't stop Trump. A virus just stopped biting.
And as you said, that should be Trump's commercial. Left-leaning Democrat Van Jones saying something's happening out there. It's like Obama 2008. A bullet couldn't stop Trump, and a virus just stopped Joe Biden. Our number is 877-301-8970. I know I speak for Marjorie, even though she's not here. She'll talk about it on Monday. I would say her anxiety index on a scale of 1 to 10 is about 300, and I am close behind. I don't know if you saw this poll we saw this morning. 60% of Americans say they're very or somewhat anxious, and my response to that is, what is wrong with the other 40%? How can you not be anxious, whether you're a Democrat or Republican, an independent? This is a stressful time.
It is. You know, I've been telling people that ever since the bad Biden debate, which is, 3 weeks ago?
3 weeks ago yesterday, I guess, yeah.
my anxiety level has been high. It's for me, I'm back to doom scrolling at night.
I know.
I'm back to drinking heavily. It's like 2020 all over again for me, you know? And I just felt like I was just getting over the pandemic, and now my anxiety is back to that level.
The number's 877-301-8897. I'm serious, by the way. It's a really stressful time. I was listening to NPR this morning, and they were doing an interview. I can't remember the woman's name, who was either a shrink or a psychologist or something. And, you know, giving these answers, which I don't know if people can do. Some of our listeners say they do. You know, I don't look at social media. I only consume the news at a pre-assigned time for a half hour a day, or I don't know how people do that in the middle of this. I wish I could. Well, I can't because of this. But it is really, really hard. And again, I would say it's hard regardless of your political point of view.
Those tactics work. I've been doing
What tactics?
You know, I removed X and Facebook, you know, the apps off my phone. I don't look at my...
You really don't read that stuff?
No, because I will just go insane.
Wow.
Even more insane.
I'm impressed.
I take deep breaths. I take long walks. I stop reading the news after dinner if I can, you know. Otherwise, I just can't function.
Well, I've done a variation of theme. When I get in bed and I'm looking at social media, instead of doing it for like 4 hours, I only do it for 2 hours. So I figure I can sleep more soundly. Let's take some calls. Nick in Cohasset. We're talking about people's anxiety index with, what is it, like 3.5 months to go or something like that. Hi, Nick.
Yeah, hi. My anxiety level's about 3 million right now.
Yeah.
I feel like we're all passengers on the Titanic and Donald Trump is the iceberg.
Oof.
And I'd like to suggest that you and your listeners read McKay Coppin's biography of Mitt Romney.
Yeah.
Because in that book, Mitt Romney reveals that a bunch of Republican senators wanted to convict Trump on the second impeachment trial, but they were too afraid to do so because they feared physical violence from his supporters.
Yeah.
So they know Trump is a maniac, but they didn't have the guts to convict him because they thought they might be assaulted or worse by his supporters.
Well, do you remember Lindsey Graham at the airport when he was being yelled at and pursued? And I think it was videoed. But let me tell you something, Nick, and I know you know, I'm sure you know this. Had the Senate convicted him, had cowards like Mitch McConnell, who told the truth right after January 6th, but then decided they didn't have the courage to tell the truth afterwards, he would have been barred by the Constitution had he been convicted in the second impeachment from running for any federal office. And as a result, this is what we get. And this is what we get. Nick, thanks for the call. 877-301-8097. You know, of all the acts of cowardice, I have to say the people who spoke the truth, the Lindsey, what was Lindsey Graham's line? Lindsey Graham's, I'm done. We've had a long, good ride, even though it's incredible considering he was John McCain's best friend. Lindsey Graham takes to the floor of the Senate and says something like, I'm done, we're finished. And of course, then becomes a Trump sycophant. Same with Mitch McConnell, who makes the president of the United States makes racist comments about Mitch McConnell's wife, who was in his damn cabinet. That's fine with Mitch McConnell. Kevin McCarthy goes to Mar-a-Lago and kisses his ring after he says the same thing. This is Trump's fault. It's a confederacy of cowards. It really is. 877-301-8970.
I mean, I thought this time would be different, right? But
this election
would be different. The Republicans would, the kind of traditional Republicans would be different. They're like turned a new page. We're going to be normal. But no, when you watch the RNC, Trumpism is alive and well, thriving, even stronger than ever. It's actually pretty incredible.
Well, that's essentially what Van Jones was saying. It surprised me, but that's what he saw. Janet, you're in Wakefield, Rhode Island. You're on Boston Public Radio with Shirley Young and me, Jim Browdy. Hi.
Hi. Thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
One thing mentioning Vance's wife, of course, is Indian and an immigrant, as are her parents. So that was kind of interesting.
Well, don't go. Wait, stay there for a second. Some of the truly lunatic MAGA people, assuming that is not redundant, have viciously attacked her in the most racist ways, saying that proves that J.D. Vance is going to open the floodgates on immigrants. Millions of Indians are going to be coming into this country. So the racism has even been directed at them from within. But go ahead, Janet.
Wow. Well, I have a dream team recommendation. I tried to get in yesterday to suggest it.
Sure.
But Newsom and Whitmer. Gavin Newsom has governed a state of 40 million people, California, second largest state in the country, and has governed it well.
Country, I think.
Larger than most countries in population and area. And I think he's done a good job. I think they'd be an attractive candidates that a lot of people could get behind. And
How do you pass over Kamala Harris, who's the vice president, who, by being nominated picked by Joe Biden, he's basically saying she's ready to assume the presidency. So how does she get passed over?
Well, I think we're in it to win it, and I just don't think we're ready for a woman, and particularly a woman of color. I just don't think she can win.
Got it. I got it. No, Janet, thanks for your call. Appreciate it.
I mean, we had Chuck Todd on yesterday, and he was saying that there's no time for any other candidate but Kamala Harris.
Well, I read a lot of things last night after the news. I think it was the New York Times that posted something saying that people close to Biden are suggesting that a withdrawal speech is likely to come this weekend, maybe Saturday, more likely Sunday. And a lot of insiders, again, I have no idea if this is true or not, because you're right, what Chuck said to us yesterday, say a month is enough. You have identified 4 or 5 people. They have mini debates a la, with the Carville idea, these town halls around the country, which will, as the caller said yesterday, get a lot of press. And then there's a vote at the convention. And as someone said to us yesterday, too, if Harris wins that, she comes out stronger because she wasn't anointed.
That's right.
And if she loses it, hopefully those who love her, particularly black voters, particularly black women voters, who are the centerpiece of the Democratic coalition and the reason why Joe Biden is president, say there was a democratic process and the best man or woman won. So
I think, as I said yesterday, I feel Kamala's underrated. I feel like underestimated.
Marjorie does too. Marjorie feels the same.
Yeah.
And we're going to play. I've said this 18 times, so my apologies. Marjorie was on vacation, so when Kamala Harris was here for the NAACP, Paris Alston, our colleague from the morning, and I spent a half hour with her, interviewed. I think the interview ran 15, 16, 17 minutes. She was really terrific, I thought. We're going to play that sometime next week.
So let's go to Laura from Situate.
Hey, Laura.
18 times, so my apologies.
Laura, you got to turn the old radio down. Okay, or not. Let's put Laura on hold, and we'll try to find somebody who does turn the radio down.
All right, how about Sandy from Sharon?
Hey, Sandy.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm in the supermarket. I hope nobody hears me.
So do I. I hope we do.
You sound good. Good connection from the supermarket.
Go ahead.
I just want to tell you it's so bad that I've actually turned to a radio station for music, and I always listen to you guys, but I have to do it later on because my blood pressure just goes so crazy.
Stick around. Sandy, stick around for the music. You can change the station at noon, okay?
Well, I just feel as though if he gets in, we all deserve what we get for voting for him.
Him being?
That's all. Yeah, the word... Yeah, him. You know who.
I believe that would probably be the Republican nominee. Sandy, what are you buying at the supermarket?
Watermelon. Going to the pool.
Oh,
good
you
for
know how to
you.
live, my friend.
I'm actually reading. What's her name's book? The one who was on your show.
Heather Cox. Oh, Doris Kearns Goodwin.
Yes. But I have to say, I'm really upset with. Well, I'm sorry.
Now, what's her name? What's that historian woman
who
from
won the Pulitzer
Boston?
Prize?
But,
Go ahead.
Let me just say one thing.
Yeah.
My friends and I, my family, we don't agree with what everybody's talking about when he raised his fist. I don't see that as a sign of strength. I see that as the same sign he gave to the Proud Boys. I thought it was disgusting.
Well, thank you for your call there. We really appreciate it, Sandy. Enjoy the watermelon. Enjoy the watermelon. By the way, Doris Kearns Goodwin's book is called An Unfinished Love Story, and it's in a great part about her late husband, Richard Goodwin, and his involvement in the Kennedy and Johnson. It's just a spectacular book, as is everything that woman touches.
And, you had Doris was on your show here, and she was on my podcast, and we talked a lot about the book.
Oh, right, I listened to that. It was great.
But we also talked about what she thinks about the current state of politics. And and she's told. She told me that, listen, I know that there's a lot of despair, right, about politics today, but she said the worst thing we can do is do nothing. She was like, if you're upset with the current state of politics, you need to be involved, you need to vote, you need to get off the couch and do something. The worst thing is apathy and not doing anything and feeling helpless.
Well, we got to take a break. Before we do, let me say what I've said a couple of times. When a caller calls and says the thing with Biden is about age, it is not about age. I mean, 81 is old, and the notion that 86-year-old president, no matter how competent he or she is, but Doris Kearns Goodwin is an example, is the exact same age as Joe Biden. She's 81. Bernie Sanders is, I think, a year younger or the exact same age. Some people age in certain ways that it's clear they can keep doing what they're doing, and this is not disrespectful. Other people, if people haven't read, I don't know if you read this, I meant to mention this morning, there's an incredibly timed piece by Sally Quinn in the Washington Post. Sally Quinn was the third wife, I don't know why I said that, third wife of Ben Bradley Sr., who obviously was the editor of the Washington Post.
Legendary editor, yeah.
Legendary is the right word.
During Watergate, right?
Watergate,
yeah.
etc. And she writes this incredibly beautiful and painful piece about what his last months were like when he was beginning to have a decline, a cognitive decline. And obviously the message of the piece, even though she never says it, it's almost a piece to the Biden family and people who love and are close to Joe Biden. She shielded her husband. She shielded the great Ben Bradley in many situations where he just wasn't up to coping even with a simple interview.
And also, Biden, 81. I mean, maybe if he weren't the president of the United States, he would actually be pretty sharp. But being the president of the United States at that age, that is a lot on an 81-year-old.
It is
and
indeed.
So when you see what's happening to him, it's normal.
It is normal for some and not normal for others. And in his case, there's an issue, and hopefully it'll come to a head soon. We've got to take a break.
All right, we're checking your anxiety levels during what feels like the return of Trump's America. The conversation continues in a quick moment. Stay with us. You're listening to Boston Public Radio 89.7 GBH.
In Russia, the number of Americans arrested on false charges has gone up in recent years, and journalists like Alsu Kormasheva are commonly targeted.
She is innocent. She is in jail because of her American citizenship.
We'll hear from the families of some of those detainees next time on The World.
This afternoon at 3, here on GBH News 89.7.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you. And the Adventure Park at Heritage Museums and Gardens. Zipline and climbing trails for all ages, 7 days a week this summer, rain or shine. More at myadventurepark.com. And Frontline PBS, presenting Two American Families, 1991 to 2024. A documentary about the fading promise of the American dream. Premieres Tuesday, July 23rd on PBS.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim Braude, Shirley Young from The Globe is sitting in for Marjorie. Marjorie will be back on Monday, and we are streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. If you're tuning in, I feel bad we're not doing this with Marjorie because no one has a higher anxiety index about this election than she does. We're doing our sort of semi-annual anxiety check-in. The Trump was anointed last night with a lot of God references filled in, and we all know what the state of the Democratic candidacy of Joe Biden is and his fellow Democrats, and we assume there's sort of peak anxiety, and we're asking you about it at 877-301-8970.
Oh, can we go to Bob from Brockton?
We can. Hello, Bob.
Hello, I'm glad to be listening as I do periodically.
Well, I wish you would do it more, but that's fine. Thank you. Hi, Bob.
I'm trying to.
Okay, good.
My first response to things right now is, can any of us imagine being shot and being alive exactly like the situation of President Trump?
It's tough. It's really amazing. I agree. Goes to a convention 2 days later. I agree.
And yet, so many people criticize him for everything he's done, even in terms of raising his hand, when he doesn't even know if he's going to be alive a minute.
Well, by the way, Bob, I can only speak for myself, not for others. I don't criticize him because he raised his hand. I criticize him because he's a felon, a rapist, and a liar. Those are pretty good reasons to criticize somebody, don't you think, or do you not?
I would if I believed those cases were honest regarding the judges, the jury, and even the charges, because...
Did the jury get it right in the Hunter Biden and the Menendez cases?
Yes, they did.
But they didn't get it right in the Donald Trump case?
I believe so.
Okay. All right. Well, you can finish up. What else do you want to say?
Well, the other topic is I am bothered when I hear the phrase regarding Kamala Harris and how she'll get the black women voters.
Yeah.
Because it sounds like that's black and woman why they're voting for them.
Well, I mean, the history of politics, not only in this country, in the world, is that often people are very supportive of people who are like them, who've lived similar life experiences. So I hear your opinion, I respect your opinion, but I think that's not an atypical kind of thing. And by the way, black women, I'll say it again, look at the demographics from 2020. Joe Biden would not be president had 90+% of black women in this country not decided to cast their vote for him. But Bob, thank you for your call. Keep listening. Call us anytime you'd like. 877-301-8970. Here's a good one. Alicia on Twitter. My anxiety level is at about 500. Laugh out loud. Well, I wouldn't. I will tell you it's because I have an LGBTQ daughter who's very frightened. Also, just the general idea of the things in the Project 2025 makes me so sick at heart. I don't think you're alone. Alicia, thank you for the call.
Should we go to Phyllis in Burlington?
Hi, Phyllis.
Hi there. I just want to, of course, I'm anxious. It would be impossible not to be, but I don't want to sit and be hopeless.
Good.
So I've donated to the Curtis Project, and I've got postcard addresses for me at Georgia that I'm going to write and send to people who might not go out and vote, so that we can get them to turn.
Fabulous. What's the project? Phyllis, you have a horrible connection. What's the project you donated to? Say it again.
The Turnout Project.
The Turnout Project. Okay.
Oh, wow. That's great.
Good. And again, also, if you couldn't, Phyllis, thanks for the call. If you couldn't hear, said I'm filling in postcards to send in to people in other states. A lot of people make phone calls at phone banks to people in other states, encouraging them to vote, and to vote, make the case that they should vote for that particular person. Phyllis, thanks for the call. 877-301-8970 is our number.
Oh, so I want to hear from Jack from Jamaica Plain.
Hi, Jack.
Hi, how you guys doing today?
Good. Well, sort of. Yeah.
Thank you for taking my call.
Pleasure.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
So I'm really at a crossroads because I don't think that Joe Biden is going to be the nominee, and so I think I might go with Robert Kennedy.
Oh,
wow. What appeals to you about Robert Kennedy?
Well, that he's not Donald Trump, and I don't know who the Democrats are going to run, so I don't know. You know, I think he has some good ideas.
What are the ideas? What are the ideas?
He's not on. Sorry, go ahead.
No, you got. What are the ideas that have most appeal to you from Robert Kennedy Jr.?
Well, I think he's of the mindset of a smaller government, kind of a libertarian type of mindset. But I know they're trying to keep him off the ballot in some of the states. North Carolina, I believe, is one of them, and
both sides.
There are other ones as well. So I don't know that if I'm just throwing my vote away if I vote for him.
I was going to say,
but I have to vote my conscience.
Yeah. Wouldn't you be throwing your vote away?
But I have to vote my conscience, though. You know what?
Jack, can I make a suggestion? I am the worst at political predictions of anybody on the planet. Having said that, I will predict that probably by Monday, Joe Biden has given, hopefully, a beautiful speech explaining why he's not running for re-election. And if that's the case, we'll be in the process of having a new nominee, and so you'll have a third choice. So why don't you sit tight, pay attention, and call us back in a week or two and see if RFK Jr. is still your cup of tea. Jack, thank you for the call. We appreciate it.
You know, I think there are a lot of people like Jack who don't like Biden, who don't like Trump.
That's the vast majority of the American people.
Yeah, and
by the way, don't be offended. If you're a Trump or a Biden supporter, every time we say this, in 2016, the two least popular candidates in the history of polling ran against each other. It's not a personal judgment. The only person more unpopular in presidential polling history than Hillary Clinton was Donald Trump. He won the election. In 2024, the vast majority of the American people don't want either of these guys to be president of the United States, and that's a reality.
I recently went to see my doctor. We always talk politics, and this doctor told me, I don't like Biden, I don't like Trump, I think I'm going to write in Charlie Baker. I did like him, our former governor.
You know who said he was writing it? We had the one of the two Republicans running to oppose Elizabeth Warren the other day, who says he's a Republican, will not vote for Trump, couldn't vote for Biden. He said, who are you voting for? He's writing in Charlie Baker.
Oh, wow. Maybe you need to have Charlie Baker back on. He's running the NCAA.
Whatever happened to him?
Whatever happened to him?
Exactly. Yeah, we should soon. We should actually have him back on soon. We have time for Charles from Providence. Welcome to the show, Charles. Thank you for calling.
Yeah, thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
Probably what will happen is Biden will step down, and that will make Harris the incumbent. And incumbents always have a bit of an edge, and she'll pick someone. Problem is, they'll lose. And so nothing really matters. It doesn't matter how smart or good the person is. If they can't beat Trump, it doesn't matter.
That would be
So what
true.
I would suggest is that the Democratic National Committee gets on its hands and knees and begs Jeff Bezos to run it.
Well, I have to say, how many people would vote for Jeff Bezos here for president? Well, that didn't go over big, Charles, at the Newsfeed Cafe.
Wait, why Jeff Bezos?
I don't think you're not serious.
Yeah,
Are you serious or you're not?
You
Charles?
want to listen rather than talk.
Yeah.
At first blush, someone might think Jeff Bezos, but hey, immediate name recognition. He'd get the youth vote. He understands the future of tech and AI.
Yeah.
He could finance his own campaign from the get-go.
He could. That's
the
true.
Washington Post without any illusion of making a profit, but because he gave a damn about democracy. He's younger than Trump. He's richer than Trump. He's smarter than Trump. He'd kill Trump in a debate. And he started one of the greatest corporations in history from scratch. He didn't get anything.
Okay, now we got it. We're not cutting you off because you don't like the idea, even though I don't, but because we're out of time. That's an interesting thought, and we'll continue to put it in the mix as we go ahead. Jeff Bezos for president, according to Charles in Providence.
So our whole list: George Clooney, Jeff Bezos. Who else? Oh, The Rock. The
Rock was you,
The
Shirley.
Rock was
no
me.
one is talking about that.
No.
Did you watch the Hulk rip-off?
I
This
did.
is a
I'm telling
Republican
you.
convention
I'm telling
where they're
you.
nominating a man who may be the next leader of the free world, is ripping his damn shirt off.
Right. So we need The Rock.
And by the way, because I watch on, didn't Dana White, the guy
yes,
from...
he was really
introduced...
good. He was a really...
He's from here, you know.
Oh, he is.
He's
He
from
was
Boston.
really good introducing Trump.
Well, maybe he should run then.
Anyways.
How about a Bezos-Musk ticket?
Oh.
Or a Musk... Zuckerberg ticket, because they
Musk
get along
likes
so
Trump.
well.
Musk backing
Yeah,
Trump.
$45 million a month he likes, and we got to take a break, Shirley.
All right, that's all the time we have. Thanks to everyone who called in and sent us texts. After a quick break, it's time for Live Music Friday on Boston Public Radio. Ahead of their opening concert next week at the Hatch Show on the Esplanade, we'll talk with Boston Landmark Orchestra's music director Chris Wilkins with live music from soprano Joelle Lamar and drummer Ryan Edwards. You're listening to Boston Public Radio at 89.7 GBH.
Today on The Culture Show, it's our Arts and Culture Week in Review, with a look at the body energetic and erotic. We look at the enduring influence that fitness guru Richard Simmons and famed sex therapist Dr. Ruth had on society. Plus, Donald Trump's media-savvy instinct to create an iconic image, pumping his fist in the immediate aftermath of an assassination attempt. We take on that and more today at 2 on 89.7 GBH.
Support for GBH comes from you. And Eversource, committed to helping businesses reach sustainability goals and lower their energy use through energy assessments and custom recommendations. Learn more at eversource.com. And Morningside Music Bridge, returning to Boston. The summer program shines a spotlight on young classical musicians from around the world, with concerts now through August 2nd at New England Conservatory. mmb.international.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. I'm Jim Browdy. Shirley Young from the Boston Globe is sitting in for Marjorie Egan. Marjorie will be back on Monday. We're live at the library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. Welcome to another. Oh, by the way, the governor will join us. Governor Healy will join us for an hour on next Wednesday, the Wednesday after the 31st from noon to 1. Welcome to another Live Music Friday here on Boston Public Radio. Next Wednesday, July 24th, Boston Landmarks Orchestra kicks off their summer season with a bang over at the Hat Shell. The music of John Williams, Jaws, Star Wars, E.T., plus classics by the great George Gershwin. As always, these concerts are free to all, a central piece of Landmark's mission to make the arts truly accessible to all. With us today, Boston Landmarks Orchestra's music director and conductor, that'd be Christopher Wilkins. Also, decorated soprano Joelle Lamar, who is, forget it. Wait till you hear her in a minute. We'll also talk with percussionist and co-founder of the New Media Arts Collective, Masari, that's Ryan Edwards. And while we're mentioning George Gershwin, here is Joelle Lamar and Christopher Wilkins performing Summertime. Christopher Wilkins, Landmarks Orchestra, just spectacular. Please join us. Oh my. Again, July 24th at the Hat Shell, free as always. And Joelle is joining us. Christopher, Ryan, who I mentioned a minute ago, is joining us. Welcome to all three of you. And I know I speak for everybody. Joelle, that was beyond beautiful. It was just so terrific. Thank you so much.
No, thank you. Thanks for having us.
And you're like a normal person, too. You do that, and then you're just, it's incredible that a human can produce that, but you did. Thank you.
Thank you.
Amazing. So Chris, I didn't know the Landmarks Orchestra concerts are free until we're doing this segment. So tell us what the orchestra is and its mission.
Well, we've never charged admission for anything. So access is the whole game for us. We try to make symphonic music available to all Bostonians. We have a great advantage that our main series is outdoors, it's informal, it's a very family environment. People are out there on their blankets with cheese and crackers and whatever they have in their thermoses, milk and lemonade and whatever. Kids are dancing in front of the stage. You can bring your dog. We have a maestro zone where people can step up to the podium and get a conducting lesson while the orchestra's going. So it's all very informal and very fun. But the serious part of it is our effort to bring music to Roxbury, Dorchester, Jamaica Plain, Chelsea, neighborhoods that are far from Symphony Hall and Sanders Theater and so forth. And we do that through collaboration and through bringing the orchestra into those neighborhoods as well.
Joelle, how'd you get involved with the Landmarks Orchestra? What's the connection?
They called me.
That always works.
You're visiting from Chicago, right?
Yeah, born and raised.
Yeah.
So what was the allure? Why'd you say yes when that call came?
You know, one of their, the show's called American Icons, and one of the composers that they chose is Jessie Montgomery. And
Who you worked with, right, in Chicago?
Yeah, I worked with in Chicago with CSO, and she's like one of the hottest composers right now. So, you know, they asked if I knew this piece, and I was like, absolutely. So that's one of the reasons why, you know, they called and they asked, you know, if I could join on to the Landmark Orchestra team.
And the second thing you're going to sing is by Jessie Montgomery. Am I right about that? And a couple of. So, you know, every time we've had someone on who's an opera singer, a great star like you are, I've always found the common thread is they went to an agricultural high school. Have you found that to be?
Oh,
what is that about? The Chicago High School of Agricultural.
Well, you know what? I got my bachelor's in philosophy. So, you know, here's the thing. I went to Chicago High School for Agricultural Sciences. I studied agribusiness. I worked in the futures market. I was a compliance consultant.
Oh, my God.
You know, working with brokers all day. You know, you kind of get a mouth, you know, whatever. And so I think that helps with my down-to-earth kind of, you know, mentality here. And, yeah, that was another life.
And Ryan, what's your connect? How did you get involved with these people?
I'm a fan of bringing people together for art in public places. I'm a composer and was invited to the Landmarks Orchestra years ago to collaborate and lead drumming programs and bring youth who could learn how to drum quickly into a situation to collaborate with an orchestra at the Hat Shell in a beautiful way that just felt like one of the best examples of how young people, orchestral music, public space, just can happen.
Music's not your only thing, though, from what I understand.
I'm trained as a percussionist and composer, but I work in a new media collective called Masari.
What is that?
We do projection art, public art, installations, interactive, all kinds of things that kind of do art in unconventional ways, often in public.
So, Chris, last couple summers, I've been taking my family to Tanglewood, and so I love the fact that we can actually have a Tanglewood-like experience in our backyard in Boston.
Yeah.
So, we bought the chairs, we bought the table, and my kids are 11 and 13. And I love it because they're fidgety sitting inside the Symphony Hall, but on the lawn outside, it's a great way for them to enjoy music. And so I don't know where I'm going with this.
Well, I like it so far.
But I was going to say, talk about kids. If people do bring a lot of families, I mean, it is actually. Oh, I know what I was going to say.
Oh, good.
Sorry, apparently people like this, right?
Apparently they do. Yes,
mistakes.
they do.
No, I know. I wanted to ask you. So, what is the difference from a musician's point of view? And Joelle and Ryan, please pop in too. But playing indoors versus outdoors.
It's significant. I'm a Tanglewood baby myself, by the way. I spent years at Tanglewood and owe that a lot. And the Hat Shell was built in 1929 for Arthur Fiedler. So our connection with the Boston Symphony and the Boston Pops is powerful. I'd say at least half of our players regularly play in the Boston Pops Esplanade Orchestra, so there's a strong overlap there. But your question about playing outdoors, it's certainly a different experience for the audience, and we talked about that. Right. But for the players, first of all, the big thing is everybody's on a microphone. So you have to be aware of your relationship to that microphone. It affects not only the sound you produce and how you produce it, but what you're hearing. Mm-hmm. And so that's one thing. The other is just the weather and the elements, the sun, the wind. I mean, we should really hold auditions with a giant fan in front of people to see if they can keep the music on the stand while they're playing. Major problem for me because the conductor has to turn a lot of pages. More than other players. It's a very different experience.
Wait, microphone. There's no mic. You're not mic'd in concert halls?
In Symphony Hall, the orchestra's generally not mic'd. It's acoustic.
Especially opera singers, no.
Yeah.
We get
I was telling Mike, Jim that too. I don't think opera singers use mics, right?
No, but you have to use them outside because the sound will get lost. I mean, you learn how to project, but it'll get lost in like the wind and elements. So.
You know, speaking of the wind and elements, I don't know if you have, since you're on the other end of the stage, and Shirley mentioned Tanglewood. The first time I went to Tanglewood, which I'm embarrassed to admit was only 7 or 8 years ago, being outside and hearing music like you all do is a quadruply great experience. When you're in, I'm not a big nature person, I have to admit. However, when you're in nature, and the wind's blowing or the rain's coming down, there's a thing. Does it do it for you, or would you prefer to be in a pristine hall?
I'm okay with it. I mean, I had a gig at Universal Studios in Japan, and these huge cicadas used to come flying in your face, and you had to keep going. And you're like running around on the stage, like trying to, still perform. You just keep going. The show must go on.
We have giant motorcycles coming at us down Stoward Drive. Make a similar
of course
sound.
you do. I'm laughing at it, but of course they do.
I think that Boston Landmark kind of has it embedded that if, for instance, if it does rain out, they usually come back the next day. So,
speaking of outdoors, do you have a Green Monster connection?
Yeah.
What the hell is that? What is that?
Yeah, I do. There's a light festival in Boston called Illuminous.
Yes.
And they took over Lansdowne Street years ago, and myself and what became my studio mates were commissioned to turn it into a percussion instrument on the outside, the Lansdowne Street facing wall. And we scored percussion parts for it and projected on it. And it was actually just this, very much like the Landmarks Orchestra, like, what can you do outside to help people connect, to help them question their environment, and actually to find serendipity.
I love it. It's Ryan Edwards, by the way. Before was Joel Lamar and Chris Wilkins from the Boston Landmarks Orchestra. July 24th is this big moment on the Hat Shell. Tell us about other things that you're doing. You're doing a Pine Street Inn connected thing.
We have a week where we're playing at People's Baptist Church in Roxbury, at Bethel AME Church, which was founded by Ray and Gloria Hammond in Jamaica Plain. And at Hibernian Hall, also in Roxbury. We're also playing at the Pine Street Inn. It's a week that we're collaborating with Shelter Music. I know you've had Shelter Music on
Adrian
here before.
Anantawan has been here. He's fabulous,
And he's soloing with us. He's playing some Piazzolla, which is tango-based Argentinian classical popular music. And in a way, our whole summer's built on folk music. So you talk about people being traumatized. Music has a great role to play, not only in terms of how we feel, but how we perceive each other. Yeah. So if I say we're playing music by an Iranian, all kinds of things might go off in your brain about what it means to be from Iran, but music gives you a chance to humanize that perception.
Speaking of being from another part of the world, did I not read you're doing some work from a Palestinian composer and an Israeli composer?
Great example. Akram Haddad teaches at Berklee College of Music and New England Conservatory. He's written a medley of quite recognizable songs in the Arab world, which is a medley for a female soloist. And he's also incorporating 3 traditional instruments, tar, oud, and darbuka of that tradition. So we're doing that. We're also doing music for cello and orchestra by Mordechai Gebirtig, who was a Polish Jew who was executed on the infamous Bloody Thursday incident by the Nazis in Krakow ghetto. He wrote a lot of folk song type original compositions, and that's a concerto for Aaron Zelkowitz, our principal cello and orchestra.
Can you tell us about one? I'm embarrassed to admit, I never heard of Julia Perry till last night, and now I know a lot of Julia Perry.
Julia Perry grew up in Akron, Ohio. I've been music director of Akron Symphony for 18 years.
Oh, wow.
I was there for probably 10 years before I even knew her.
I feel better.
Oh, wow.
Tell us about her.
Julia Perry was a brilliant talent, mid-century, 20th century, black woman, grew up in Akron.
Born 100 years ago this year, by the way.
Born 100 years ago in 1924. She had a great education from the Akron Public Schools, from Westminster Choir College, but her big break came at Tanglewood when she met Aaron Copland and was taken sort of under the wing of an Italian composer called Luigi Dalla Piccola, who became her mentor. She had a big career in Europe. She was a five-tool player, composer, pianist, singer, violinist, and conductor.
Oh, wow.
She conducted the Vienna Philharmonic, for goodness sake. Oh, my God. New York Philharmonic ended up playing a work of hers. She came back to America hoping to live as a composer, make her living as a composer, and she found that doors here weren't open to her in the way they had been in Europe, which is a depressingly familiar story. She developed health problems. She had a series of strokes. She lost her ability to speak, and she kept composing until she died at the age of 55.
And through your creative work, you're able to play. Is it on August 3rd you're going to be performing some of her work?
Correct. We're going to play a world premiere of a work that she wrote probably 60 years ago. And the problem has been intellectual property.
I understand
because she died intestate, and there was no heir to give rights.
Can we spend a couple of minutes with both of you, Ryan and Joel, on this access issue? I've been, another embarrassment for me is I had never been, other than when I took a date 50 years ago to Philharmonic, to a symphony. And then Andres Nelson's, the conductor of the BSO, was going to be on the show, I don't know, 10 years ago. And I went because I thought it was respectful, and I just fell in love. I mean, it's just unbelievable. But the audiences are sort of monolithic. It's mostly older, and they're working hard there too, older, wealthier white people. We hear a lot about the effort to make this kind of music more accessible. Is success being found, do you think?
I think so. I mean, when programs like Boston Landmark, one of the things that they told me is that they are trying to break those barriers, right? By reaching out to other communities and having different types of experiences and programs for the community. And, they are also working with like accessibility for the deaf, the blind. They have even for memory challenges, they go into homes to help those with Alzheimer's. They'll play music from like their era or something like that. And they collab with children. And I think that's where you'll get the growth, is collabing with the children. And getting them to understand, this is this is a different type of music. You can grow from this,
Do you see progress, Ryan? Because you care a lot about it, too. You do?
I do. The last 10 years, I think this city's, big arts institutions have been working on it. They have to work on it, but I think that it's starting to happen in bigger and better ways. And I think
Mayor Wu told us, when she announced that the museums would be open.
Yeah,
the
public art triennial that's
yeah.
coming to the city next year, and many more small and medium-sized groups, institutions, orchestras, theater companies are broadening out the kind of stepping stone spectrum for more risk-taking, which is what bigger audiences want. That's kind of what helps us become excited.
I mean, there's a lot more work that needs to be done, but it's being done, and it's not going to happen overnight, right? Yeah, so as long as you love the arts and you find a way to join all of the different aspects together, I feel like as creatives, we do live on an edge. We're the ones that push boundaries.
You want a little advice about how you can expand the base? You should go sing in a lot of places. That's what I think you should do. Every top place you can go to sing. Who wants to tell us what you're performing this round? Do you want, Joel, do you want to tell us? Or Chris? Or,
Judgment Day from Jesse Montgomery's 5 freedom songs, which are pulled from the traditional black spirituals. Usually it's for voice, percussion, and violin, but today we'll do it with just percussion and piano.
She's really young too, isn't she?
Jessie? Oh,
Jessie,
yeah.
Wow, that's really
she's doing really well.
Okay, so can you three gently put your headphones down, because they're pretty sensitive, and go over there, and we'll tell people again, July 24th on the Hat Shell. What's the website, Chris, if they want to find out other... landmarksorchestra.org. Shirley will tell you that in a minute. If you want to find out about their whole schedule for the rest of the summer, but the next big thing is July 24th on the Hat Shell, and the key word, it is free, which is wonderful if you care, as they do, a lot about accessibility, and here they are yet again.
in that day. Oh, you're my soul, and the moon will turn to blood in that day. And you'll see the stars are falling, and you'll see the stars are falling, and you'll see the stars are falling in that day. Oh, you're my soul, and you'll see the stars are falling in that day.
All right, that was amazing. So we've been speaking with the Boston Landmarks Orchestra's
Wow.
Chris Wilkins, soprano singer and poet Joelle Lamar, as well as percussionist and co-founder of the new media arts collective Masari, Ryan Edwards. Opening night for the Landmarks Orchestra is next Wednesday, July 24th at the Hatch Show. Like all of their shows, Wednesday's performance is free to all. For more information on shows throughout the summer, go to landmarksorchestra.org. After the noon news, it's Trenny Casey from NBC Sports Boston.
Update from NPR. Stay with us here on GBH 89.7.
Funding for our programs comes from you. And Newport Mansions, presenting a collection of house museums and landscapes exemplifying 3 centuries of achievements in American architecture and landscape design. Parking available at all locations. Tickets at newportmansions.org. With the help of some of her family and some celebrity friends, Lydia Bastianich takes a trip down memory lane on and off the screen. Don't miss 25 Years with Lydia, a culinary jubilee, tonight at 9 on GBH2.
I'm reporter Liz Niesloss, and you and I are listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston, online at gbhnews.org. GBH News with NPR. What matters to you?
I'm Jim Browdy, ahead on Boston Public Radio, live from the Boston Public Library. Sports Authority Trenny Casey previews the Olympics, where she'll be anchoring, by the way, on the E! Network. Paris's mayor is swimming in the Seine.
In check. All next on Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Lakshmi Singh. The Biden re-election campaign says the president, Evan Gershkovich, was sentenced to 16 years in prison for espionage. Here's NPR's Jackie Northam.
Evan Gershkovich was arrested 16 months ago while on a reporting trip in the Russian city of Yekaterinburg. Russian authorities say he was caught red-handed and charged him with spying. Jason Conte, the general counsel for the Wall Street Journal, says it's not clear what evidence Russia has because Gershkovich's trial was held behind closed doors.
I don't need to have insight into the trial to know that they don't have any evidence that Evan is a spy. It's completely bogus, totally ginned up, and complete and utter nonsense. Evan is a journalist.
Conte says Gershkovich's case would likely be resolved through political negotiations, like a prisoner swap between Washington and Moscow. Jackie Northam, NPR News.
The Justice Department is suing an organization in Texas that provides housing to unaccompanied minors crossing the U.S. southern border. Employees of Southwest Key are accused of sexually abusing and harassing children in their shelters. Gabriela Alcorta Solorio with Texas Public Radio reports the allegations are being denied.
Assistant Attorney General Kristen Clark of the Justice Department says sexual harassment of a child where they should be safe is dehumanizing and unlawful. Southwest Key programs operate 29 shelters in Texas, Arizona, and California. They are the largest housing provider for unaccompanied children in the country. The lawsuit alleged that between 2015 and 2023, employees subjected children to severe or pervasive sexual harassment, listing detailed recounts of the alleged abuse. The department's lawsuit seeks monetary damages to compensate the children affected. I'm Gabriela Alcorta Solorio in San Antonio.
The International Court of Justice in The Hague finds that Israel's 57-year occupation of the West Bank and East Jerusalem is unlawful and needs to end as soon as possible. The ICJ advisory opinion was issued at the request of the UN General Assembly. It is non-binding. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is dismissing the court's decision as one based on lies. He says, quote, "The Jewish people are not conquerors in their own land," end quote. This is NPR News.
Good afternoon from the GBH newsroom in Boston. I'm Craig Lamoltz. The massive IT outage around the world is also affecting services in Boston this morning, including systems at Mass General Brigham and Logan Airport. MGB hospitals have canceled all previously scheduled non-urgent surgeries, procedures, and medical visits. Noah Brown is an MGB spokesperson.
Mass General Brigham remains open to provide care to patients with urgent health concerns in our clinics and emergency departments, and we continue to care for all patients currently receiving care in our hospitals.
Other hospitals in the area are monitoring the situation but have not canceled surgeries. At Logan, flyers have been dealing with delays and cancellations. That includes Ellen Howard of New Hampshire, who was at Logan this morning for a flight to Alaska that was canceled. She says she's doing her best to take it in stride.
You got to kind of go with certain things. It's nobody's fault. You know, it's not a tragedy. It's just a delay, and hopefully it'll all work out tomorrow.
Logan has seen more than 200 delays and more than 60 cancellations so far today. A new poll out this morning from Suffolk University and the Boston Globe shows it's not just the several Massachusetts politicians who feel President Biden should abandon his re-election bid. It's also voters who want a new Democratic nominee. The poll shows 64% of Democratic or Democratic-leaning voters surveyed said they prefer a new nominee. That's a margin of error of plus or minus 5.9 percentage points among that demographic. In the forecast, sunny and in the low 80s today, and sun and clouds and temperatures in the mid-80s tomorrow. This is GBH.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Schwab, with Schwab investing themes like artificial intelligence, renewable energy, or pet passion. Over 40 themes to invest in. Learn more at schwab.com. And the Doris Duke Foundation.
Welcome to hour number 2 of Boston Public Radio. I am Jim Browdy, sitting in for Marjorie, who'll be back on Monday as business columnist for the Boston Globe and the host of the great Say More with Shirley Leong podcast. That'd be Shirley Leong. Hey, Shirley, how are you?
Hi, Jim.
Nice to see you. And we're live at the Boston Public Library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. Before we introduce our next friend here, our guest, I just want to do a shout out. One of the reasons we love this studio, beyond the fact that they're real people here, is we share the space with a great newsfeed cafe that not only has wonderful food, but has some of the kindest, most wonderful people working there. Well, in addition to great food, since food is the language of love, as we know, they have a new bakery. And we had the woman who runs this thing, Karen Clark, on the show a few months ago. It's a family thing. It's Karen, her husband, their kids, Jordan, Jabril, and Jeremiah. It's called Clark's Cakes and Cookies, and they're now serving them here. I started eating these chocolate chip cookies, chocolate cake, some kind of crumb thing. What did you think of this?
Oh, I've only, this is all I've eaten today.
Do you know it's vegan? Do you know it's vegan? I can't stand vegan stuff. It's fabulous.
Yeah, I had coffee, tea, and this lemon blueberry coffee cake. That's
good, right?
That's all I've been powered on that all day. It's terrific.
We'll give none to Trenny because she's working out. Clark's Cakes and Cookies, now on sale at the Newsfeed Cafe. Joining us now is Trenny Casey, anchor and reporter for NBC Sports Boston, and in a couple of days about to start anchoring the Paris Olympics on the E! Network. Hey, Trenny, how are you? Nice to see you.
I ran 8 miles today. Don't I deserve a cookie?
You can have my chocolate cake.
Don't I get a cookie for that?
Maybe a bite of a cookie.
You can have my
orange slice and a juice box.
Did you really run 8 miles?
Yeah, it was nice.
Good for you. Yeah, it's
piece
beautiful
of cake, so to speak. Yeah, thanks. Nice to see you.
So, Trenny, the Olympics are starting next week, and you're one of the anchors for the Olympics coverage on the E! Network and CNBC. So tell us what you're doing and what can we expect from the Olympics?
I think this Olympics is probably going to be one of the most exciting and visually stimulating in a long time. I mean, you think about Tokyo and Beijing, obviously they're still amazing. These are people who work. I just ask everyone to remember, these are athletes who work for 4 years towards one singular goal. And so that in and of itself is always amazing. But this is the first time since, I guess it would have been 2018 in Pyeongchang, when we have people back at the Olympics. In Tokyo and Beijing, we were still in COVID land, and everyone had to wear masks, and there were no families present. There weren't any spectators anywhere. So this is going to have that excitement around it again of families in the stands. You get to watch their, the mom and dad reactions and the spouses. It's going to be really fun. I had a job shadow the other day, and she said, "Do you ever get nervous? I can't believe you just went in and cold read all those things you had to do this afternoon." And I'm like, a trained circus monkey could read the prompter for a few minutes. I said, but I am nervous about the Olympics because it's the first time I've ever been asked to host. Usually I'm in venue, and that's nerve-wracking too, right? I usually do tennis.
Or curling, when the men won the gold medal.
Yes. But like curling, they're like dudes from Wisconsin and Minnesota. I'm from Wisconsin, for those of you who don't know. So it's like you have this immediate connection to them. But when you're interviewing Novak Djokovic and Venus and Serena Williams and Rafael Nadal, like these are huge athletes, and like that's a little nerve-wracking. But this is a new big challenge, and we kick off on at least the coverage that I'm anchoring kicks off on Saturday, July 27th at 11 a.m.
In about 30 minutes, we're going to be joined by the three people who led the effort to ensure that Boston did not get the Olympics. Where were you on that?
So, listen, I wanted it here because I have now been to 4 previous Olympics, and while it is a massive undertaking, it's such a neat experience for the host city. I think especially for a city like Boston that already has infrastructure in place, but also I am a resident of Boston, and driving here today on a Friday when no one works anyway, everyone works from home on Fridays, it's still like horrible getting anywhere. And I don't know, I guess the pie in the sky me thought that would fast track better public transportation.
That's what Marjorie was positing.
Yeah, like maybe we would, new infrastructure, fixing of bridges, every day that I ride on like 90 and 95, I feel like I hit like a massive pothole, and one of these days my tire is going to fall off. I was sort of optimistic that might change, like fast track some of those things. And I just do think it's really great to host a huge international event and showcase your city. But I do again, now having lived here for well over a decade, could you imagine 2 or 3 million extra people here? I don't even, I live in the North End. Honestly, I probably would have been like, put me up in a hotel in BC because I'm going to Airbnb in my condo and make our rent and make our mortgage for the year.
We're talking to Trenny Casey.
No, I supported the Olympics here.
You did?
I did. I wrote a lot of columns about it, and
I should know this. I read your columns. That makes me sound like I don't read your columns.
Well, it's been like 9 years now. So, I think we could have pulled it off.
I do. I really think we could have pulled it off, and I think that. Listen, I'm not a Boston native, but I consider myself a Bostonian now. I do feel like there is a large group of people here who really don't love change. Like we couldn't even people were opposed to like an F1 race here. So they took it to Chicago instead. And I'm looking at the pictures and the videos, this was just a couple of weeks ago, of like these drone shots and helicopter shots of this F1 track weaving through Chicago. And I'm like, that could have been here. And I feel like sometimes we see the problems and not the positives that could come with hosting major events and the benefits.
Okay, well, thank God you both lost. That's all I can say. So the question
Shocking,
on the lips
Jim doesn't want anything new
of
here.
Everybody is the mayor of Paris alive or dead?
To the best of my knowledge, she survived the swim in the Seine. Okay, so this is why the mayor of Paris jumped into the Seine River. It has had high levels of E. coli.
Not a problem.
Actually a massive problem because it can cause all sorts of issues. I know a lot of the athletes have been reading stories about athletes who are going to compete in triathlon, open water swimming races, long distance swimming races. They've been taking antibiotics because if you get E. coli, like that can really wreck your system. But apparently it sort of peaked in early July. Well, what happens is like E. coli, like a lot of our big cities, and I'm sure we deal with this in the Charles and in the harbor, your sanitation system sometimes accidentally leaks into these things, I guess, which is so gross. And it gets worse when the weather gets warmer. So when the weather is warmer and it heats up, it makes the E. coli problem worse. They've had, I guess, better weather in Paris as of late, and the E. coli levels have gone down. And so to prove that, the mayor jumped in the water and swam in the Seine to see, I don't have gastrointestinal problems after swimming in the Seine, to the best of our knowledge.
Do you remember when Bill Weld, and some people think he was drunk, but I mean, jumped into the Charles to swim with his clothes on, if I recall correctly.
But the Charles River now, from what I understand,
parts of it.
You can swim in the parts of the Charles, right?
I don't think there was a proposal to swim in the Charles for the Olympics. I don't think that was part of the game plan.
Well, I think you would have probably. Where else would you have done open water?
Well, speaking of where else,
that's right.
I mean, you would have to do so.
Maybe they would have swam
I'm training for a triathlon now, so I'm learning lots about triathlons.
Yeah.
But
Boston Harbor. What's wrong with Boston Harbor?
I mean, you could do Boston Harbor. The issue with Boston Harbor, and I'm learning this now as I'm practicing open water swims, you have to swim during high tide. Like that's a really important thing because otherwise you have to swim too far out out from shore. So when your high tide is in, you can swim close to shore, but that has to time out. And then then you think about this, the Olympic distance, I think, is like a half mile or 3/4 mile swim. And then the weird thing about triathlon is it's not like a marathon. It's not like running where it's like 5K, 10K, half marathon. And then it's like a 20-something or 30-something mile bike, and then you jump off the bike and do it 10K. So if high tide is at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and it's warm in the summer, that's actually like a terrible time it's fine time to swim, and it's a fine time to bike, but then you have to jump off the bike, and at 5 o'clock with the sun beating down on you, you're trying to run a 10K.
Yeah, I'll be doing that.
It is better to do it, I think, in the river where you just there's some more controllables. And the one thing about a river, though, is that obviously flows one way or another, so you do get a little push from a river.
Can I ask you one last Olympic question? We read a story in the New York Times. I always worried. The joke was, remember when Mitt Romney put Seamus, his dog, on the roof of the car and they drove to Canada?
Yeah.
That's what I thought they were doing with horses. How do they get a horse for the...
Wasn't this a fascinating story?
Yeah, how do they get a horse to the Olympics?
So there are special planes. So there was this really cool story in the Washington Post this week that talked about, there's all these crazy Olympic sports that, quite frankly, they don't get the publicity of gymnastics and swimming and track and field and whatnot. And so it talked about how do you get these sort of strange, different equipment that you need from here to Paris or wherever the Olympics are. And one of them is, of course, equestrian and dressage, which I'm actually strangely excited for dressage. That's where the people dance on the horse. So you get the horses. They have special cargo planes. They have special planes that are outfitted to move horses internationally, globally, and they have hay stalls in them, and they're big enough to have attendants in there. Basically, the horses don't even really know because it's just putting them into their stall and moving them. But they said they can get jet lag. So you try to get them there early. You try to get the horses acclimated. But some of the other odd, things that people bring with are think about a pole vaulter. You have this huge, long pole. carbon pole.
Name.
Right. And they have to, and it gets flagged in baggage claim, and also the firearms.
Yeah,
you think
rifles,
about
right?
decathlon and rifle shooting. You have to lock your safes and put your guns, and you have to check everything. But then they try to go through them. They talk about how many times they get locks broken into. If you're in cycling, you have to take your bike apart and you have to put it into a cycle case. There's a lot that goes into being an Olympic athlete. Of the if you're a runner, you throw your track spikes or your racing shoes into your backpack and your singlet, and you put it in your carry-on, and if your luggage gets lost, you buy new stuff. But you can't do that if you've got one of these very, if you're a fencer. Can't just go to a fencing store.
No, you can't. We're talking to Trenny Casey.
So can we talk about this very controversial ESPN list of ranking the top 100 professional athletes of the 21st century?
Yes.
And
close, Shirley. We were so close to having a woman number one. We were so close.
So where was Tom Brady?
Tom Brady was number 5.
That's outrageous.
So I don't know if a 5 is outrageous, but I did. So it was Michael Phelps was number 1. Serena Williams was number 2. Who was number 3?
Number 3.
I had it pulled up and now I'm forgetting.
Lionel Messi.
Oh, that's right. Lionel Messi, which is hard. I did feel maybe, and then
LeBron was number 4.
LeBron was number 4.
Come on, Tom Brady.
Thank you. That was the one I had the problem with.
Yes,
I thought at very least Tom Brady should have been number 4.
Exactly.
Because LeBron James is a great basketball player, but he hasn't won as many championships.
That's right.
And think about who he needed around him to win the titles. He won in Cleveland with Kyrie, and then he went to Miami and he won with Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh. And he has not.
He won in LA during the COVID.
He won in LA during COVID.
Rings. He doesn't have as many rings.
He does not.
No, I mean, Tom Brady has 7 championships, and Tom Brady won his titles at the beginning of his career and at the very end of his career. That one surprised me. I didn't that one. That was the one. Lionel Messi is a global superstar. He's one of the best to ever play the most popular sport in the world.
He has 23 gold medals.
Yeah, Michael Phelps. It's and think about that. That is an individual. The reason I was okay with 1 and 2 for sure. So number 1, of course, being Michael Phelps, and number 2 being Serena Williams. Those are indivial athletes who have nobody else around them that can help them. That's true. Right? Yeah. Even Tom Brady, his 6th Super Bowl here against the Rams before he 2 years before he left for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The defense carried that team. It was, I mean, the final score was 13-3. It's not like Tom Brady. The last Super Bowl that he lit it up was when they, of course, came back 28-3 against Atlanta and that Super Bowl in Houston.
But when you lead everybody. I mean, in my
you
view,
do, but it's still a team sport. There's more there's more of but he is to me the LeBron. I saw that and I was like, are you kidding me? Freaking LeBron.
Maybe they need to divide between team and individuals.
Call ESPN. Can we go to something that we've talked a lot about, the state of the WNBA? There's a new contract, a media thing, which obviously is what fuels
everything.
So tell us what's going on. What's it's going to mean? We all know that one of the reasons that Brittany Griner was in Russia is because even though she was a star in the WNBA, the salaries are so horrible.
Yes.
She had to go somewhere to make additional money to live a decent life. So what's the deal and how's it going to affect salaries in the WNBA?
So I haven't seen specific numbers on what it will mean for salaries long term, but the WNBA's collective bargaining agreement, they have sort of timed it up and they've chosen to not renegotiate until this TV deal is done. And at least in the framework of the TV deal, which they negotiated side by side with the NBA.
Which owns the WNBA.
Which owns the WNBA. And some people find issues with that, but the way that they explained it, and the head of the WNBA and Adam Silver, Kathy Engelbert, and then Adam Silver, who's the commissioner of the NBA, said, if we go to, and full disclosure, NBC is, I think, on the verge of being one of the new partners in the NBA. So if they go to ESPN, NBC, and Amazon, and they say, you're not just getting the NBA, which ends in June, you're now also getting WNBA rights, which extends into August. So you basically have, I think they said, 330 days of programming. So the NBA has reached a deal, a preliminary deal, worth $76 billion for the next 11 years. The WNBA has reached a deal for $22 billion over the next 11 years, which comes out to about $200 million a year, which is three times what their television deal is now. And it seems like there's still another $60 million that might be on the table for some additional revenue possibilities. So you could be looking at, okay, help me out here, $22.6 billion.
By the way, you meant $2 billion, which is $200 million a year, not $22 billion. $2.2 billion is the number for the WNBA.
Oh, I thought it was $22 billion.
Still a lot of money. I mean, it says $2.2 billion for the deal for the 11 years for the...
and I think it's $200 million a year.
A year.
Right?
It is $200 million a year. I'm real bad at
It's okay, but that's what, okay.
But but I thought, I mean...
Okay, that would be like $1.2 billion a year.
Well, whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, it's $200 million a year. You're right about that.
I mean, I think it's great that the WNBA is getting more money, but it still pales in comparison to the men.
Yeah, but it's not about... This is where it becomes difficult. Like, the women have only been around for 25 years. The NBA has been around for 65 or 70 years. Like, you're not going to make... There's not the advertising. There's not the number of games. There's not the number of teams. So all of that factors into what networks are going to be willing to pay to broadcast the rights of your games. To triple it,
It's a step in the right direction.
It's a step in the right direction.
Yes.
I mean, and I think most of these athletes would tell you that they understand they're not going to get exactly what the men get. It's about revenue. It's about shoe sales. It's about everything. And it took the NBA a long time to get where it is.
Yeah, but I would argue, by the way, I understand that, and obviously that's the bottom line. And I don't have any scientific evidence. I would bet you if you polled the American people and you said, in your community, are you spending more time talking about Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese or about Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum? I would bet they'd say Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese. I mean, they are.
But you're not.
Everybody's
But you're
talking
not
about
just
this.
selling. You're not just selling Caitlin Clark and Angel
I know
Reese.
that, of
If you
course.
went out and asked people, name me 5 NBA players and name me 5 WNBA players, my guess is far more people can name 5 NBA
That's probably
players
true.
than they can. Like, you have to grow the entire league, and that's why I think the Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese, this class of women was so important, because I think that's a big factor in being able to get this kind of money.
agree.
Now, who knows? What if they triple or quadruple it or 10 times it the next, in 11 years from now? And they can always, I know they can't renegotiate the broadcast deal, but, depending on what kind of money comes in terms of ticket sales and whatnot, they may be able to, their CBA will not go 11 years. So they'll have an opportunity again to renegotiate that CBA and maybe even get higher salaries.
So what I was hoping is, because the NBA is, I think, a 60% stake in the WNBA, they could have used their clout even more to get more money for the women. I mean, I was just looking at the average player salary for the WNBA. It's about $113,000, $113,000 versus $4.6 million for the NBA. You think that,
well,
maybe...
you would have to get, because both are collectively bargained, you would have to get the NBA players basically to say, I'll give up my salary for them. I mean, that's really, and they're not going to do that. Like people like these, like, would you give up? I mean, I'm going to be honest. If NBC came to me and said, we want you to take, now granted, I don't make anywhere near what these guys make. So if you take even a 5% pay cut, you're still making a ton of money.
Right. But I'll make $4 million instead of $4.5 million.
Yeah, I mean, at most,
so
like,
the women can make a little bit more. That's what I wish would happen.
I think for a lot of these guys, it's not like a job like you or I are in. You're not in it. You're not making that kind of money for an infinite amount of time.
With all due respect to both of you, you're talking about the wrong thing. It's not about asking a player to do it. The Celtics were purchased $350 million. I learned from you, your column. They're about to sell for $5 billion. The people who should be subsidizing the WNBA salaries are the NBA owners who are making billions of dollars
and
on
why
the
are
sport,
they
not
making,
the players.
But again, like they don't want to pay their, a part of the reason I believe that the Grossbeck family is moving on and selling is partially because Irv is going to be 90 and he's got the father has the real monetary stake in the team, right? And he is 90 and he's trying to get his stuff in order, his estate in order. And so he wants to take that and then divide it among his 4 children, which is his right. But like when you buy that, if you're like these guys, like think about John Henry. The whole reason the Red Sox have not invested monetarily in their team the last 4 or 5 years is because John Henry doesn't want to pay a luxury tax. Do you think NBA owners, these guys don't become billionaires because they decide to just like charitably throw money all over the place? They're shrewd businessmen, and it's all men. And I don't think they're going to subsidize a league unless they get something back in return. Like that's money out of their pockets. That's money out of their family estates.
Gender equality. That's what we'll get out of it.
Yeah,
equity. Gender equity.
I mean, certainly they might get like a statue or something for being, All right,
I'm going to work on that. That's my next little project.
I mean, I've learned, and it's disappointing at times, but I have learned that at the end of the day, it always comes down to money, and they're not going to give up. Rich people do not give up money that they could be putting in their bank accounts and stock accounts and whatnot.
Well, I would just argue,
because if they did, they'd pay the everyday worker more.
Well, I would argue though, in this thing is the issue. The WNBA, if it's ever going to explode, is going to explode in a positive way.
Yes.
Right now, and whatever investment you can make in the players and in the league. To ensure that it does have this growth at this critical moment.
Well, I mean, you look at
the time to do it.
The women's soccer league. I believe it's the women's LA team was just acquired for like the most money ever in the women's soccer league.
Oh, wow.
So there are owners who are starting to identify, and that, to your point, Jim, I do wonder as these franchises become more valuable, does somebody who got in on the ground floor sell the franchise to someone with more money? Similar to what the Celtics are doing, which could have a positive effect on the Celtics. You have somebody with deeper pockets, and they're going to be able to pay the luxury tax if they want to win. And do these teams get sold? And then as the ownership, as the value of the franchise goes up, and the owners who come in have more money, then do they pay? Are they willing to take a short-term hit for a long-term gain?
Well, I'm hoping Caitlin Clark will and Andrew Reese can change kind of the dynamics, the financial dynamics of the WNBA.
I mean, that's a lot on those women's shoulders, but both of them are having a heck of a year. They're both front runners for Rookie of the Year in the WNBA. Caitlin Clark just had a game the other night where she had 19 assists. That's not a rookie record. That's a WNBA record. Angel Reese set a record 15 games. I think that's where it stopped, of consecutive double-doubles. So, these are two. I mean, Angel Reese was sitting courtside with Jaylen Brown and his girlfriend at the Celtics Summer League game. Those are all, I know they seem like...
When Jaylen Brown said that LeBron's son can't play pro.
Well, he's not wrong. I mean, Bronny James is like the nepotism at the highest level. But I know those are small things where she's sitting courtside with an NBA player, but all those types of things trickle down and they put them in the public eye, and it makes the entire sport grow.
Okay, so we're going to excite you on the way out. I didn't realize we have sound of a couple of the assists that Clark did when she made the all-time record for the WNBA. And by the way, more assists than she ever had in college in 4 years.
Oh, wow.
By the way, here's a little piece of that against the Dallas Wings.
Ooh, another fancy move by Clark. And now Samuelson's turn. But Cowan, who couldn't finish, behind the back again for Clark. Give her another assist. And a chance for a three-point play for Smith, who laid it in. That is now 13 assists.
That's pretty exciting,
Yeah.
even on the radio, by the way.
Aaliyah
Good luck.
Boston had the most points of her career.
Her teammate.
Yep, her teammate, Aaliyah Boston. They still lost the game, but they're in 7th place, so the top 8 teams go to the WNBA postseason, but they're on a break.
Tell us one more time when we start watching you on E for the
A
Olympics.
week from tomorrow, Saturday, July 27th, I'll be on E and CNBC on the weekends from 11 a.m. to 6 p.m. Eastern.
Can't wait.
Not the entire time. You'll see events in between, but
Well, we should
I'll
hope
be
so.
there getting you in and out of events and
Very
talking
Great.
to folks.
Congratulations,
Very
Trenny. It's
exciting.
great to see you.
I will
Lots
look
of luck.
much nicer than I do right
You
now.
look pretty great. It's okay.
We've
See
been
ya.
speaking with NBC Sports Boston's Trenny Casey. Trenny, it's always good to see you. So after a quick break, food and policy analyst, The Atlantic's Corby Kummer joins us next. You're listening to Boston Public Radio 89.7 GBH.
I'm Arun Roth. Coming up on GBH's All Things Considered, we'll have the latest on the impact of today's global internet outage at local hospitals and at Logan Airport. The contentious plan to renovate Boston's White Stadium received a key approval. And we'll hear how community gardens are holding up amid this summer's intense heat. Those stories and all the day's news starting at 4 on GBH's All Things Considered.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you. And National Grid, helping businesses work toward a sustainable future by offering guidance on heat pump solutions. Learn more about how heat pumps can help reduce greenhouse gas emissions at ngrid.com/future. And Virtue Psychiatry, offering virtual and in-person appointments in North Andover. Treatments include psychiatric evaluation, psychotherapy, and medication management. To learn more about their approach, you can visit virtuepsychiatryma.com.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim Brody and Marjorie, and we're live at the Boston Public Library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. The governor joins us here at the library for an hour on July 31st, and the mayor joins us at the library at August 6th, I think, at the library. August 6th, thank you very much. Marjorie has the day off. She'll be back Monday. Boston Globe business columnist extraordinaire, Shirley DeYoung is sitting in. We're joined now on Zoom by food policy analyst, multiple James Beard winner, Corby Kummer. Corby's the executive director of the Food and Society Policy Program at the Aspen Institute, senior editor at The Atlantic, and a senior lecturer at the Tuss Friedman School of Nutrition, Science, and Policy. Hey, Corby Kummer.
Hello there.
Hey there.
Hi, Corby.
Hi.
Hey, so I wrote a piece this week about this fake liquor license that a restaurant got in Boston, and it turns out traced it back to their liquor license lawyer who had provided a fake license to them, and the restaurant's been shut down, and it just opened in March, and so it's now been shut down longer than it's been open. So, you know, I've been writing this whole series about liquor licenses in Boston. I was wondering, from your perspective, I mean, what do you hear about the kind of whole liquor license system in Boston, where it's capped and it can cost 6 figures? I mean, what kind of effect does it have on the restaurant industry here in Boston?
Now listen, you're our guide in this. I was so excited that you're the co-host because you wrote that terrific piece. The main point of which is it's opaque, murky, wildly overpriced, ridiculously restricted, the liquor license system in Boston. And the minute you exit Boston city limits, as you know, you escape from this kind of tyranny and outdated restriction, which is just like taxi medallions used to be before Uber and Lyft disrupted that entire model. These hundreds of thousands of dollars, you quote the fraudulent lawyer who helped charge $300,000 to this really nice guy you make sound absolutely terrific in the story about the Austin boutique hotel.
Yes. And,
can I ask you a question before I ask Corby a question? I know there's a bill in the legislature. I just don't know if it's been approved yet.
It hasn't.
This is the bill that would add a couple of hundred extra licenses of some sort to Boston, but it hasn't passed yet.
It hasn't. It's sitting in the Senate. The House passed their version. It's gone to the Senate. The Senate has some revisions. But as you know, there's only about 2 weeks left.
12 days left till they go on a 5-month vacation.
Exactly.
So my question for you is, which I'm surprised, and by the way, Shirley's whole series is spectacular. I mean, about the arcane, grossly unfair political and equity system or inequity system on liquor licenses, particularly in Boston. Do other cities have this nightmare where a legislator who has nothing to do with the city of Boston is involved in the decision-making about liquor licenses in the city, or are we aberrational, Corby?
I think Boston is aberrational. Anything that has a very restricted number of desired items that costs a lot of money is going to invite corruption. And this has. In the fraudulent lawyer in Boston who'd worked for the city and should have known better and did know better, but was perfectly happy to phony up a license in the interim and leave this nice guy, Shirley makes sound creative, family fun-inducing, a terrific Boston entrepreneur, left him hanging and losing hundreds of thousands of dollars, having been closed longer than he's been open because of this fraudulent snafu.
So, Corby, one of the best stories I've read in the food world in, I'd say, months, and we read a lot thanks to you, is about the food, or about the former restaurant critic for the Boston Globe, Pete Wells. Do you know Pete Wells?
You mean how long have I known him and how good friends are we?
That's what I meant.
Very long and very good friends.
Could you tell us what is happening to Pete Wells, please?
The New York Times, right?
Oh, did I say what I said?
I thought you said Boston Globe.
Oh, I'm sorry. New York Times. Sorry.
I think it's wishful thinking. So
what happened?
Pete Wells was long time a drinks columnist for Food and Wine. He'd been an editor at the New Yorker. He's a superb stylist, a fantastic writer. And also, he loves eating and has really done beautiful work over his 12 years as a restaurant critic in New York. But he decided to follow in the footsteps of Adam Platt, who after 24 years quit New York Magazine, because even though Adam Platt, brother of the actor Oliver, is
I didn't know that.
4 inches at least, and he says built like a Brahmin bull, and actually he's from an aristocratic Brahmin family. He said, I'm getting gout. My doctors say I'm out of control. They've been telling me that for years. I quit. And that was in 2022, after 24 years. Pete is younger. He's been on the job 12 years. And in his beautifully written, funny piece, he said, my doctor told me I was technically obese. Okay, not just technically. And he went into gout, diabetes, all of the really alarming health conditions, and said, health is the word no restaurant critic will mention, like actors won't say Macbeth, because you look into an abyss without any bottom. And it's so true. I immediately wrote him. I was incredibly fortunate as a restaurant critic who was known as eating ridiculously little, despised for it for good reason, because I only had bites of stuff, but I had bites of a lot of stuff. But that was in meeting a monthly deadline. Pete had to meet a weekly deadline. That's dozens and dozens of meals and dishes he had to try every month. His body and himself, he was out of his control.
So Adam Platt that you mentioned, I love the quote in Pete's story. He said, Adam called being a restaurant critic, it's the least healthy job in America, probably. And so I recently did a series with Deborah First, who's the restaurant critic at the Boston Globe.
And a wonderful writer herself.
She is. And so, and And Pete alludes to this in his piece. It's like you never want to complain. I mean, to be the restaurant critic, the other reporters are out, like, you're chasing, homicides. You're like going through spreadsheets. You're talking, government documents. How can you complain about eating out every day? No one wants to listen to your complaints. And so when I was eating out with Deborah, we went to 10 dim sum restaurants in 6 weeks. And I used to be one of these people, like, I'm so envious of Deborah. She has the greatest job ever. And then after going to 10 dim sum restaurants with her in 6 weeks, I was like, this is horrible. This sucks. Like, I was so stuffed. And by the end, I was like, I don't think I could eat another hagao or shumai. And so I don't know how she does it. And she, like Pete was saying, I mean, she was eating dim sum with me, but then she was doing her, she was eating at sushi places too for another piece. She was always eating.
So
what I didn't do, and Pete did, which is really important, is eat reference meals.
Yes.
If you're writing about a cuisine you don't know very well,
yes,
it is your responsibility. I use as an excuse the fact that the expense account I was allotted would not give me those reference meals, but it's the right thing to do as a critic. That just adds to the amount of food you're eating.
Corby, is this Wells' not complaint, but honest self-analysis? Is that? I assume you're an outlier. I assume lots of people who do that for a living have similar issues to Pete's. Yes.
What I have to stop you is lots of people who do this for a living. It's barely a living, and there are so few people. I would say 12 to 20 max
in the country
are working restaurant critics
really?
Whose expenses are paid. It has really died more or less since the internet began. Look at Deborah. The Globe used to have a weekly deadline. Now it's once a month. Almost everyone has reduced it to that or nothing. There are very few working restaurant critics whose expenses are paid anymore.
We're talking to Corby Kummer. Read the piece. It's great. Pete Wells in the New York Times. My apologies. So, Corby, there's a piece a very positive piece in the Boston Globe. Alternative protein industry to get potential 10 million boost from Massachusetts. You're the business columnist, so I can ask you too. It's $10 million over 5 years for researchers and businesses making milk and meat alternatives. And while I guess it's groundbreaking because lots of places don't subsidize it, is $2 million a year enough to prop up a struggling but important industry in the time of climate change?
No, your question answers itself. It's a pittance, it's almost nothing, but it's a big gesture for a state to be embracing not only plant-based protein, which is what we're able to buy on supermarket shelves, oat milk, almond milk, soy milk, cashew cheese, all of these plant-based alternatives, Beyond Meat, Impossible Burger, but also cell-based meat. Which we haven't talked about, but the European Union Italy is like Florida and Texas have banned the sale of cell-cultured meat. It's just a ridiculous showboating gesture. It's not available yet. It's not anywhere like affordable at scale. But Europe approved pet food, cell-based chicken to go into because so much pet food has meat in it, and it's a very important step to increase animal welfare. The idea of being able to produce from just one slaughtered animal dozens and dozens of vats of cell-cultured meat that could then go into food and save the climate change, save greenhouse gas emissions, and save animal welfare. It's not there yet. As for the state of Massachusetts, it's mostly going to be plant-based meat, innovation. But the idea of making a gesture and saying the state is behind it, I think that is very important.
Hey, Corby, what's cell-based? What are you talking about?
Okay, so you slaughter one animal and then you find a growth medium to grow out the cells from that animal to make brewed meat, brewed in a vat. It's sort of like beer. You're endlessly trying to reproduce these cells. What it does is it makes a mush that tastes like chicken. It just doesn't have anything like the texture of chicken. The very, very few experimental versions that have come onto the market have been mostly soy or other things where they have solved the texture problem with a little bit of the cell-cultured meat. added to it. I don't think we're going to see it on the market in our lifetimes.
Have you eaten, I've asked you and I forget, have you eaten any of that?
Yeah, I ate cell-cultured chicken once, but again, it had so much plant-based filler in it and flavorings that I wasn't able to evaluate how close it was to chicken.
You know what's incredible in the story, at least it was incredible to me, maybe not you two, in the story by your colleague, Stella Tannenbaum, our Globe correspondent, she says plant-based milk accounted for about 15% of milk sales nationwide last year. I thought that was a stunningly high number. It is, isn't it? I mean, that's a lot.
But remember, it's been growing for years and years because of soy and almond milk.
And oat milk is now everywhere as well, oat milk. But yeah, I think this is great. This is you have to think about this is a very niche market. And what I love about it is this kind of tapping into, all the innovation, Kendall Square, UMass Amherst. I mean, there's just a lot. I think there's a lot of innovation and startup culture here in Massachusetts, and I'm great. It's great. It's not just life sciences, and probably this is life sciences related, right? What they're doing with plants and with meat alternatives. So I think it's great.
Well, it's not much money, but I'm assuming, and you're the business columnist, that when the state shows an interest in something and supports it, like Corby said, that sends a good sign to private investors. I assume so we take it from there. We're talking to Corby Kummer, our food guy.
So should we go to France?
We should go to France.
So the Olympics start next week in Paris, and it looks like there are going to be some Olympics of eating as well. Can you talk a little bit of what's happening in Paris? Not just running and tennis playing, but a lot of eating too.
So you as a business columnist would know how many adjunct industries elbow their way into professional sports franchises and how increasingly money spinning these franchises seem to be. It seems every day, maybe because of the Olympics run-up, I've been reading another story about the increasing value of sports franchises. So here in Paris, France is the home of food, has a huge infrastructure and chefs for food, but they're doing things like airlifting professional kitchens into wonderful 1930s buildings right across from the Eiffel Tower, right across from the Olympics. They are sailing boats down the Seine that are going to have €15,000, which is a little more than $15,000 dinners created by named and Michelin-starred chefs. They're going to have lots and lots of food hall type places with supposedly affordable food like chouquette and salt cod fritters available to you. The idea is that now food is a really important part. This is a fancy version of corn dogs at a state fair. Lots of people are really coming here for something else. They're paying a fortune to get there. And now food is a part of the theme park atmosphere.
Yeah.
So wait a second. Did you say the meal on the boat for the opening ceremonies is $15,000?
Yeah, I think it includes maybe a seat at the Olympics. If you could charge $15,000, they quoted another $8,000 or €8,500 dinner, like on the Eiffel Tower with the perfect viewing. Yes, it's for people who have too much money.
I think this is great. I mean, Jim,
if you have $15,000, it's great.
No, I mean, there are 80 pop-up restaurants. I'm sure there are all kinds of price points. But look, we missed this too in Boston.
Thank God.
This could have been our Olympic year. We also mixed.
Why don't you say that to our next three guests in a couple of minutes, and what a missed opportunity it was. So, Corby, here's a question for you. If you had a choice between a $15,000 dinner on the Seine watching the opening ceremony or spending $79.99 for an apocalypse bucket at Costco, which would you choose?
Who's paying the bill?
Exactly. What is an apocalypse bucket, please, Corby Kummer?
Yeah, right. If somebody else is going to pay my way to Paris, which is something we forget, it's hugely expensive to get to Paris and stay to Paris for the Olympics. So this is for people who already have a ridiculous amount of money they're throwing down to get to the Olympics. Now, the $79 ReadyWise emergency food buckets from Costco, they have a lot of essentially apocalypse food. Just add water and you can have orange drink. You can have cheesy macaroni, teriyaki rice, creamy pasta, and vegetables. This is for the, Houston, which lost power New Orleans will in its hurricanes. This is so you don't have to worry about spoilage. You can put it in your basement along with a crank radio that doesn't need any electricity. And I actually don't think it's such a idea, depending on how much closet space it takes up. It sounds vile, but it's maybe a good thing to have around.
It's fine. It sounds vile, but it's a great idea. Here's a clip from Jeffrey Eisner, sort of doing what you're doing as a cookbook author, talking about the apocalypse bucket. I think he was at Costco when he made this TikTok.
So I'm in Costco, which is like my happiest place in the world to be. And I've never seen anything like this before. They have buckets that they're just calling emergency food supply for 132 servings. And what is included in the bucket? I guess this is for when the apocalypse hits, which could be any time now, right? Who knows? When the world collapses and caves in, as long as you have your ReadyWise emergency food supply, all's right with the world.
You ever eaten any of these things that sort of like astronaut kind of food deal?
Yeah, I have. Like when you go to the NASA Museum in Washington, it's mostly sweet. But I've had some of the savory stuff. The immediate thing, I have a new Eagle Scout in my life. Of a 14-year-old or 15-year-old, we're crazy about family friends. And he goes on tons of scouting trips. And I was thinking, $80 isn't much for food that could really keep you going on a camping trip if you don't have access to fires as you usually do.
Well, except if you read this story, wherever it was on NBC News, when the apocalypse comes or when your young Eagle Scout friend is on his hike, where's he going to get the water to rejuvenate these little packets?
Remember, are they calcium? What are the tablets you put in to try to purify water?
Oh, that's right.
That's arsenic, I believe it is, when the apocalypse comes. It's arsenic.
Right.
Corby Kummer, it's great to see you as always. Thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it.
I think next week you guys need to try this on air.
By the way, I would try. You know where they sell them? I just realized.
Where?
I assume you take your kids to the Science Museum.
Oh, yes, that's right.
In the store, they have those
the
little
NASA
packets,
ice
the
cream.
NASA
Yeah,
things.
the
Right,
NASA ice cream. So we've been speaking with food policy analyst Corby Kummer. He's also the executive director of the Food and Society Policy Program at the Aspen Institute, a senior editor at The Atlantic, and a senior lecturer at the Tufts Friedman School of Nutrition, Science, and Policy. After a quick break, we are going to hear from the 10 people on Twitter behind the push to keep the 2024 Olympics out of Boston. We have Chris Dempsey, Liam Kerr, and Kelly Gossett join us next. You're listening to Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH.
This week on Under the Radar with Callie Crossley, dangerous triple-digit heat waves put millions at risk. Is this our new normal? Plus, help for local beach erosion and Vermont holds oil companies accountable. It's our environmental news roundtable. That's Under the Radar with me, Callie Crossley, Sunday night at 6 here on 89.7 GBH and the GBH app.
Support for our programs comes from you. And Heal Veterinary Clinic in Watertown, committed to providing their clients with conversation-focused visits and caring for pets with low-stress animal handling techniques. Heal Vet, a better experience for you and your pet. Heal.vet. And the University of Massachusetts Amherst, the Commonwealth's flagship public university. You can learn more about research, innovation, and economic impact for the Commonwealth at umass.edu. That's umass.edu.
I'm Nicole Garcia, producer for BPR, and you're listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston, online at gbhnews.org. GBH News with NPR, what matters to you.
Not here, you won't. Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. We're live at the Boston Public Library, streaming youtube.com/GBH News. Marjorie has the day off. She'll be back on Monday. Boston Globe business columnist Shirley Leung is sitting in for Marjorie. In January 2015, Boston was picked as the U.S. bid to host the Olympics for 2024. And actually, somebody at this table here actually supported that bid. Who was that? Oh, Shirley LeYoung.
Guilty as charged.
Beach volleyball on the Boston Common, rowing on the Merrimack River, a BMX course at Assembly Row. But enthusiasm was scarce, and pushback from groups like No Boston Olympics, and they were the ones called 10 People on Twitter by Mayor Walsh, who was championing the effort, doomed it and ended up in Paris. Joining us now are, actually it's 3 people from Twitter, the leaders behind the No Boston Olympics effort 9 years ago. Chris Dempsey and Liam Kerr are here in the studio, and Kelly Gossett is on Zoom, I think in the UK. Kelly, it's great to see you. Liam and Chris, great to see you guys too.
Great to be here.
So the whole gang.
Hi, Kelly.
The whole gang is back. So Jim and I covered this issue pretty closely back in 2015, and for everyone else who doesn't remember the ill-fated Boston 2024 bid and the No Boston Olympic movement, Chris and Liam, I was hoping you could remind people how No Boston started.
Liam, go ahead, because it started in your living room.
Yeah, so Chris and I had met doing management consulting during business school. And so we were experts in taking a big complex thing we didn't know a ton about and then going to experts and getting the very, very, very top line. And it didn't take long to Google around to a few studies and see, hey, it turns out basically every time a democracy does one of these things, they end up regretting it. Yeah, there's the one outlier in Barcelona everybody talks about, but this is ridiculous. And so we'd meet at night, sometimes late at night, and eventually, put out a one-pager and then a Twitter handle, and then realized, I think upon reflection, a pretty intimidating way, wow, nobody controls the process. No one's in charge. And at that time, there was a power vacuum, post-Menino, pre-Charlie Baker, and it was, wow, this isn't really anybody's job. Even though it seems pretty obvious to anyone who Googles for a couple minutes. Let's put the experts out front. Let's put the clear information out front. And all of a sudden, we were on a flywheel where people started reaching out. The more information we put out, kind of David and Goliath situation.
Were you drunk during these discussions, Chris, or were you not?
There may have been a few beers
okay.
involved.
I want to challenge what Liam just said a minute ago. Maybe there was no, leadership thing. Virtually the whole power infrastructure of this city was on the side of it coming. The mayor of the city of Boston was pretty popular. Marty Walsh was a big-time supporter. The leader of the effort was John Fish from Suffolk Construction, one of the most powerful people in town. And almost every major corporate type, even if they didn't know all the details, thought this was a wonderful idea. So it was sort of the ultimate David and Goliath kind of deal. No? Is that fair?
Yeah, so, Boston Magazine puts out a ranking of the most powerful Bostonians. And the year before this bid got attention, 8 of the 10 most powerful Bostonians
Is that really true?
were supportive of the Boston 2024 bid. So we were going up against some very powerful people, and they had their own reasons to do this. But we really felt that this was not the right thing for the Commonwealth and for the city. That this was going to cost taxpayers billions of dollars, as it has in city after city that's hosted the Olympics, including Paris this year, and that the benefits that you get are pretty fleeting. It's pretty fun, we'll admit, for 2.5 weeks, but you're left with this multi-billion-dollar hangover and a bunch of venues that you don't really need for the long-term health of your city.
How'd you get involved in this, Kelly Gossett?
Yeah, I had heard about the Olympics going over budget in other places and the white elephant issue. And I had read about it coming to Boston. To your point, Jim, I think noticing that some of the very big titans of the town were on the other side, I kind of knew. I was working in homeless advocacy at the time, and how challenging that is to get any public resources to that issue, and seeing that these folks were probably going to have a pretty easy chance of getting this through, given how many folks were on that side. So I kind of just reached out to Liam and Chris and was like, let's how can I help? How can I contribute? And off to the races we were from then on.
So Shirley LeYoung, since we have 3 leaders of the effort to deny the bid to Boston, and I was on their side, and explain to us why you thought it was a good idea.
Well, I wrote column after column.
We know that.
And we've got one right here, by the way.
What does that say?
This is 9 years ago, so people were still reading hard copies of newspapers back then.
They still are.
This is the day that the USOC chose Boston to be the official U.S. bid. It says Boston picked to bid for Olympics. And here's our friend Shirley Long right here on the top left saying, instead of saying no, let's be open to the possibility.
Okay, well, why were we open to the possibility, columnist Shirley Long?
Well, because the promise of the Olympics, will put Boston on the world stage. I mean, we just have Trenny Casey here. She's going to be anchoring some of the coverage, and so millions, billions of people around the world will get to see our wonderful city. Also, another promise of the Olympics is that we can finally fix the T. When we have millions of spectators, thousands of athletes descending onto our city, we will have to get the Red Line up and running. Also, thousands of units of housing will be built for the athletes' village. I mean, this can solve our housing crisis.
Okay, well, that's a great question. That we haven't built the housing. The T is still a mess, even though a lot of us think that the new GM of the T is the right person for the job. Liam, starting with you, 9 years after the fact, I know you thought you were right then. Are you right now when none of those things happen?
Yeah, we thought a lot about priorities, and we thought a lot about opportunity cost. So of all the best people in the city of Boston, in terms of capacity to get things done, are totally focused on this 2-week party. What's not getting focused on? And I think one other piece, not just this amazing column, and I'm with Shirley, people still read the paper. So this is the headline, Friday, January 9th, 2015. Roughly how long had Charlie Baker wanted to be governor at that point? 22
His
years.
whole life.
He'd been working to be governor. Right? Shout out to Needham High and the governor. So he wanted to be governor for a long time. He wanted to come in and fix some things. I came from the world of education advocacy, Kelly from homelessness, Chris from transportation. We cared deeply about these issues, and we wanted them prioritized. This was Charlie Baker's inauguration day that they announced this.
I didn't remember that was the same day.
I don't remember that. I remember it was, but now it says it all. That's why Charlie Baker was lukewarm. I mean, he wasn't even above. He was barely above the fold.
Right, and so for those on the radio who can't see this, right? So the top
this
of
is streaming. They can check it out.
The top of the front page is about the Olympics. Below that is talking about Charlie Baker's priorities for the state.
Well, that was inauguration day for him, right? The day he was inaugurated.
So he gives his big speech about setting out his priorities, and he gets upstaged by a 2-week television event 9 years later.
Yeah, but
that shows the issue on priorities.
You're the transportation guy, Chris Dempsey, and I have to say, as I said, I was with you all. I thought your arguments were really powerful, but deadlines often get people I mean, this legislature's gone on for 5 months. They're finally doing something. Why they're doing it? Because they want to go on their 5-month vacation in 12 days. Had there been a deadline of whatever that's going to be, late July 2024, isn't it possible or maybe even likely that the legislature that is so fearful of providing historically adequate funding for what you know so much about transportation would have been forced to do it, and we might have been years ahead of where we are?
Well, first, let's dispel a myth that the IOC cares about public transportation working in your city. For 1996, they chose the city of Atlanta with not great public transportation over the city of Toronto, which has excellent public transportation. Mm-hmm. It showed where their priorities are. They wanted to be in the US because they would make more money. But more to the point, getting back to Liam's point about priorities, we really felt that if our elected officials were saying to us that the only way they were going to be fixing the T was for a 3-week event 9 years down the road when we're inviting over company, then we need new elected officials that care about the people that, like me, who ride the T every single day, who want to get to work, who want to move around the region. That should be the priority, not a 3-week event.
So, Kelly, what was the feeling the day? Can you hold up that headline from the Boston Herald, please? Boston Herald says, bid adieu. What was the feeling in your ranks? I don't just mean the three of you, but your whole movement, the day that Marty Walsh said, no mas, we're not doing this anymore?
I think a little bit of just stunned. We had just been in such a go mode and with so much adrenaline. And I don't know, we did not have a plan for after the summer. I mean, it was really everything was being thrown at it. And we had such wonderful, amazing volunteers and incredible people behind us. And we were small teams, so we were able to be really nimble. But I think that day was just like overwhelming joy for sure that I sometimes still, harken back to. It was a beautiful moment for us.
Do you guys think you're going to win, by the way? I mean, honestly, did you think you were going to pull this thing off, Chris, or you did?
Well, we had a
I don't think that's true.
We had an abiding faith in the people of Massachusetts that when we learn more about what's being put before us for public policy, we're going to get to the right decision. And that's exactly what the polling data showed. So first of all, Shirley's column says, let's be open to the possibility.
Yeah, let's attack Shirley some more. Go ahead.
The early polling actually showed that Bostonians were supportive of this bid, about 55% support, something like 35% opposition. But then as they learned more about this effort, then we, of course, had the winter of 2015, the T shutdown, and people started to say, you know what? Maybe this shouldn't be our priority and our focus. The polling was extremely clear. The more people learned about Boston 2024, the less they liked it. And we did have a faith that they would do their homework.
We got to tell the Charlie Baker story, too.
Oh, tell it.
All right, so we walk in. I think we've passed the statute of limitations of off the record, but apologies to the occasion.
This is the second time we talk about Charlie Baker today, so anyways, go ahead.
So we walk into the cabinet meeting, and we have this deck that...
We've been asked to present to the cabinet about why we were opposed.
Yeah, we didn't crash the cabinet meeting. We built out this MBA-type deck in Baker's Kellogg MBA, and he's sitting up front, and it was really cool to see him. He kind of hyped up all his different cabinet members, and he's really focused in on this. And we're given the deck, and like you put in a lot of decks, there's the trick slide where you have something in there, and you're waiting for them to ask that question, so then you look smart. And Baker jumps in faster than any of the other 200 meetings we'd done. And the slide showed that in France, the federal government is the backstop financially. In America, it's the state. And so we were basically doing like a case study, like, let's see how smart Charlie is. He jumps in and says, what's the population of France? In the middle, and Dempsey goes 70 million. He's like, all right, so we have 9 times the risk per person, per taxpayer. And that's, one thing that we had talked about at that time was, what if hypothetically there's a Republican Congress in 2024? What if could we imagine Republicans maybe being unreasonable about providing billions of federal funding to a blue state for security? I don't think we knew how right we would be about that. But Baker cracked the case. He cracked it quickly. It wasn't just because he was upstaged, although I think that...
But that was, since you're telling a statute of limitations stories, I'll tell you, I'd never met John Fish, and he invited me out to breakfast. I think I may have told you, Chris. We had a bunch of breakfasts at this fabulous, dumpy breakfast place on Western Ave near GBH. And by the way, he was incredibly cordial and open. He was really...
As he has been to us.
That was a grown-up kind of thing. But the thing I kept saying, which is, it seems to me as a layperson who doesn't have any experience the three of you do, until you can guarantee taxpayers they're not going to get stuck with the bill at the end, it doesn't matter what you offer the city. It's horrible that the IOC want lanes dedicated to them on the highways that are exclusive. All that stuff in me was peripheral. The primary thing was, am I going to end up paying for this? And they were never able to answer that question. Isn't that why it all fell apart?
Yeah, it would have cost us about $10 billion as a Commonwealth. And they talked about getting insurance to cover the cost overruns. They had months to produce that insurance. It doesn't exist. So they never had a credible plan to pay for this. And the more attention everybody paid to it, the more we saw the holes.
Shirley has a quiz for you.
I do. I have a little pop quiz. We have a little sound. And so we're going to play the sound. And anyone, if you can recognize it, just shout it out. All right? Here's the sound.
It's coming.
Here's the sound. Dwayne?
It's coming. It's not working.
It's not working?
It was a great idea. We'll save it for a minute. Well, no, we'll get it going.
All right, okay.
You'll get a second.
Should I paint the scene?
No, don't, because it'll probably be working in a minute.
Oh, here it is.
It's a good quiz. Okay, any of the three of you, what is that sound and where is it coming from? Recorded by Shirley LeYoung, I believe. Is that correct?
My producer.
Your producer, right. What is
I'm
the
going
sound?
to guess that those are trains going by Widette Circle.
Wow,
that's really good.
You are incredible. Now, what is Widette Circle, Shirley LeYoung?
Well... So I feel like I need to give you a prize. Maybe this on chocolate cake. So Widette Circle, most people have probably never heard of Widette Circle until the Boston 2024 Olympic bid. And so it's this industrial no man's land in South Boston. A lot of food wholesalers were there. And that was going to be the site of a temporary Olympic stadium, opening and closing ceremonies. We were there Tuesday to see What is it like now? And it remains a no man's industrial land. The sound didn't capture the seagulls. There are a lot of seagulls.
Crapping all over Woodette Circle.
Yeah, that's who inhabits Woodette Circle now. It's now owned by the T. It's a rail yard storage right now. But that was supposed to be when the Olympics came to town, and after they left, it would have been the infrastructure would have been there to build Boston's newest neighborhood. So instead of having a new neighborhood, it could be probably another half century before we see a new neighborhood.
So is there a question in there, Shirley?
No, I just wanted to know what of Woodette Circle?
Sure. So here in this book,
well, you are
No
propped
Boston Olympics
up,
book,
my friend. Let me tell you,
a great photo of Kelly in Woodette Circle, standing there.
It looks exactly the same, by the way.
By the way, this book is not very good, but the foreword of this book is
who
excellent.
wrote the foreword?
Some guy named Browdy.
Yeah, I actually. No, by the way, who wrote the?
Talk about the book.
Explain who you.
So written by Professor Andrew Zimbalist from Smith College.
He's like the world expert on World Cup and Olympics, and Chris.
And he's the expert, and he happens to live here in Massachusetts, which is another example of how sophisticated and smart the people of Massachusetts are, that the world's expert on this subject happened to live in Northampton, was a Massachusetts taxpayer, and cared about this issue.
Okay, so by the way, Chris has been wearing the No Boston Olympics pin for 9 straight years, which is really impressive. So I'm only going to embarrass Shirley one more time because I love Shirley and I'm her biggest fan. One of the most embarrassing pieces in the history of the globe was the Bostonians of the Year in 2015. Kelly Gossett, do you know who they were?
2015, I think it was John Fish and Chris Dempsey.
Oh, it was. That's right. So there's a picture on the front of the magazine of John Fish, the leader at most of the time, not the whole time, of the effort, and Chris Dempsey, who is one of the 3 people on Twitter. And there's like a dove sitting there. I mean, talk about pathetic staging of this thing.
Do you know how hard it was to get a park bench?
Dove ready to go? Okay,
and
fine.
a park bench.
Okay, so they take a picture. They're Bostonians of the Year. Oh, by the way, the relevance is Shirley writes the piece. John Fish, again, not to be critical because I admire him, said, when history is written, I think there will be a powerful bid legacy. Is there a bid legacy? Thank you. Okay, next question. Kelly, you can answer that. Here's for you, and this is a serious question. Ian Cost did this fabulous podcast for GBH called The Big Dig. And the primary question that Ian asked in this wonderful thing, which is still available, is essentially, can we still do big things in Boston? And Shirley writes at the end of her Bostonians of the Year piece about John Fish and Chris Dempsey, and really about you guys. But an obvious question is whether the high-profile flameout of Boston 2024 might discourage others from pursuing a big idea here. Just take a look at how hard it is for Walsh to hold an Indy-style car race in Southie. That was something that Trenny mentioned before. I think Southie really needed an Indy car race. What's your answer? I'm going to all 3 of you. What's your answer, starting with you, Kelly, as to whether or not we can do big things here?
Of course we can. We weren't just recalcitrant. This was a thoughtful understanding of what the issue was.
Hold on one second. Okay, say it again, please. We had a mic
Sure.
problem.
We weren't just recalcitrant. This was a thoughtful examination of an issue and thought it was in the best interest for the city or the state. We can always do great things. Massachusetts is phenomenal. I think also just remember, we didn't even have a social media account, like an Instagram account back then. This was just a Twitter and us going and great volunteers. Like we can still have issues come to fire and have great people be that cacophony in whichever direction it needs to be, certainly.
What's your answer, Liam?
We want to be smart, not just big. And I think the IndyCar race is a great example of that. When you talk about the big dig, I mean, the IndyCar thing is hilarious. I mean, for those who forget, that was more of a jobs program for the U.S. Attorney's Office than it was.
Trenny loved it. She just saw it in
But go
Chicago.
ahead, Liam. Yeah.
Big but smart, right? I mean, are we going to have schools that the rest of the country and then world look to like we've done here? Are we going to have marriage equality that the rest of the country then follows? Are we going to cure cancer? Are we going to, I mean, the things that happen here are beyond showing us off for 2.5 weeks. But if they would have met what we asked for, they could have done it. If they didn't want the express lane for the Princess of Luxembourg and everyone else in the IOC committee, if they didn't do all the bribes everywhere else, if they didn't need to build an 80,000 seat stadium for one thing, we would have said, sure, come along. We can't wait for the NBA All-Star game. We can't wait for the World Cup. We have no problem showing up Boston. There is no doubt we can do big things in this city and this state. Just got to do smart.
Want to make it unanimous, Chris Dempsey?
Yeah, look, when you moved beyond the glossy images of the Olympics, you saw that it required building the most expensive venues at a cost of billions of dollars, and taxpayers would be on the hook. We should think big in this state. Kelly worked on homelessness. We should be attacking that problem. Liam worked on education. We should be improving education in every classroom in the state. We should be fixing the T, which is a passion of mine, and I'm taking the T home today. But we also have to think smart, and the Olympics were never a smart idea. I think the moral of this story, I'm going to actually allow John Fish's words to echo as I think we're closing out here. He called me, he was the leader of the bid, passionate supporter of it. He called me the day after the bid died, and he said, democracy worked. And I thought that was a very wise thing of him to say. He appreciated that we had a civic conversation. It brought out some of the best of who we are as a community, and we made a decision as that community that we have other priorities beyond putting on someone else's television show. We made exactly the right call, and I'm grateful to the people of Massachusetts that they were with us.
Do you have any more props before you go, or no? Is that
I got a beer, a no Boston Olympics beer koozie here.
Sunglasses.
And then, you, Shirley, these are Boston 2024 sunglasses. They're starting to fade a little bit.
Wait, those are in favor of Boston 20? These I definitely want. Thank you very much. Congratulations, all three of you, by the way. Kelly, it's great to see you. We miss you here in the United States. And Liam and Chris, it was one of the great campaigns ever, and congratulations. It's great to see you. Happy anniversary.
Happy anniversary.
Well, it is.
Well, this was the day that would have been the start of the opening ceremony.
Oh, had it been in Boston?
If you look at the official Boston 2024 documents, today was the day of the opening ceremonies.
Oh, wow.
That's why we're here.
That's beautiful.
And we got to spend a little time at Wadette's Circle to reminisce of what could have been. So we've been speaking with Chris Dempsey, Liam Kerr, Kelly Gossett behind the successful No Boston Olympics initiative. Up next, we're going to replay our conversation with filmmaker and Boston Globe reporter David Abel. And also, actually, he's also at, isn't he a professor now at BU? David Abel as well. And a fisherman, Michael Packard, who was nearly swallowed by a whale. You're listening to Boston Public Radio 89.7 GBH.
I'm Arun Roth. Coming up on GBH's All Things Considered, we'll have the latest on the impact of today's global internet outage at local hospitals and at Logan Airport. The contentious plan to renovate Boston's White Stadium received a key approval. And we'll hear how community gardens are holding up amid this summer's intense heat. Those stories and all the day's news starting at 4 on GBH's All Things Considered.
Support for GBH comes from you and Boston Children's Museum. This summer, you can dive into curiosity and play, create, and wonder. From Winnie the Pooh to the outdoor curiosity kitchen, family fun and learning happen every day. BostonChildren'sMuseum.org. And MIT Federal Credit Union, helping customers get started on their savings journey with the MIT Federal Credit Union Starter Savings Account. Learn more at mitfcu.org.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy. Shirley Leung from the Globe is sitting in for Marjorie. Marjorie will be back on Monday. We're live at the library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. The governor will join us for an hour on July 31st. The mayor will join us for an hour on August 6th, both here at the library. We originally intended to host the great twosome TJ and Hadley Douglas from the Great Urban Grape as a sort of summer wine tasting segment. Unfortunately, in part due to the Microsoft outage this morning, they weren't able to get here from their other store in DC. We're going to book them sometime in the next couple of weeks. And by the way, the urbangrape.shop is their website for more. It's a fabulous place. In their place, we're airing this great conversation from last summer when then Boston Globe journalist and documentary filmmaker David Abel, who's now at BU, and lobster fisherman Michael Packard, who was not swallowed, but let's call it mouthed by a humpback whale in Provincetown. There's some screenings of this fabulous film going on throughout the summer if you want to watch it. It's called In the Whale. A few upcoming dates include this Sunday at the Worcester Echotarium, Wednesday at Nantucket Dreamland, and Friday as part of the Woods Hole Film Festival. For more information on screenings, go to inthewhalefilm.com. Here's our discussion with those guys. Michael, it's great to meet you, and David, it's great to see you. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you very much for joining us. And let me ditto Jim. Great job, both you on this film. Great about Provincetown, great about the whale, great about the dancing, great about the life of a fisherman. I mean, you got it all in there. So just starting with you, David. I remember when this first happened, there was a lot of skepticism. But you went down there, intrepid reporter that you are, to get to the bottom of whether a man could actually have been in the mouth of a humpback whale, and what'd you find?
Well, you may recall there was, as you said, a great deal of skepticism, and that skepticism came from the former editor-in-chief of the Globe, Brian McGrory, in spades. And Brian had let it be known that it was my job to debunk this bogus story. And so I did what any reporter would do. I tried to interview as many people as I could, including Michael. I interviewed his mom. I got the 911 tapes. And I had the very sorry task of having to go back to my editors to tell them that I'm sorry that your preconceived notion turned out not to be true. And I actually really believed Michael's story. And I would say that one of the best headlines for any story that I've ever written at the Globe over many years accompanied the story that I wrote about Michael, and it was, "This fish story isn't hard to swallow."
But I'm bummed. By the way, before we get Michael involved in this conversation, I was a skeptic too. I was off one day listening to our show. You and Jared were hosting, and Josiah Mayo, who's become a fairly regular caller to the show, who was the crewmate and driver of the boat that day. Josiah calls in 2021. This is what convinced me. Here's part of what Josiah had to say.
I thought it was just, a whale sort of harassing him or attacking him or playing with him, or who knows. I mean, it's pretty violent, the commotion on the water, but, I had no idea until we pulled up and he said, I was inside the effing mouth. And we're just like...
So, Michael, let's turn to you for a second. One of the things that comes through in this film, I only knew of you. I didn't know all the detail. You are incredibly honest in this film. There's a lot of painful stuff. You apparently do not desire celebrity. There's been loss in your family that you describe in honest detail. Why'd you consent to David and his colleague doing this film about you and your experience?
Well, first off, I want to say the reason that a lot of people didn't believe the story because the press just jumped right in saying that I got swallowed, and they ran with that. And just like anybody, I wouldn't have believed it either.
You said in the film you were mouthed, you were not swallowed. Is that correct?
Correct. And then when I went on Jimmy Kimmel, I told him, Jimmy introduced me. This is the man that got swallowed by the whale. And I said, Jimmy, let's get this straight. I wasn't swallowed. He said, I'm going with swallowed.
So why did you agree to this, Michael, though? Thanks for the clarification. Why did you agree to have this done about you? It's a pretty intimate portrait.
Well, it was difficult at first. I thought about the money.
Why not? Absolutely.
And
that hasn't panned out.
And then as it went on, it became much more personal, and I thought it would just, even if I didn't make a dime off it, I thought it would just be a wonderful legacy for my children and my grandchildren.
I agree with you.
And just get all my loved ones. It's just a beautiful film that people can remember me by.
It is a beautiful film, but let's cut to the chase here, Michael Packard. You're a lobster diver. You go down, not doing the lobster traps. You are going down, picking up these lobsters off the ocean floor with your hands. And you wound up in the mouth of a humpback whale. So tell us how it felt inside the whale's mouth and how you even realized you were in a whale's mouth.
Oh my God. Yeah. I was just descending down in the water and there was lots of small fish and I almost reached the bottom and I just didn't see the whale coming and I just got hit out of nowhere and it just hit me like a bus or a freight train and then water just started rushing around me. And the first instant I thought, oh my God, this is the shark that I've been dreading. And then immediately I knew it wasn't a shark because I didn't feel any cuts or pain. I was just in this cavernous, dark place. And then immediately after that, within 5 seconds, I said, yep, I'm in a whale's mouth. Holy F.
I think that's appropriate under the circumstances, Michael.
And you were sideways and you could feel the pressure on your legs?
Yeah. Yes, I was sideways, but it wasn't like cavernous. I was crushed in there. I could barely move. And to tell you the truth, when it first happened, it knocked my regulator out of my mouth, and it was just bubbles coming out of it on the side of me. And I was like, okay, I'm in a whale's mouth, but if I don't put that in, I'm dead. So I better find that regulator. And I put it back in my mouth. And like I said, it was about 30 seconds, but it felt like an hour. But the things that went through my mind, I mean, I've had close encounters with death in the past, but I was 100% convinced I was going to die. And what really crossed my mind the most was I knew he wasn't going to kill me. I still had another 45 minutes of air in my tank. So I thought, I'm going to sit here for 45 minutes until I run out of air. That was the scariest part. I said goodbye to all my loved ones, and then he just started ascending. I could feel him getting really erratic and throwing his head back and forth, and then I started to see light, and then he just threw me out of the mouth and went flying through the air.
We're talking to Michael Packard, and I think it's pretty obvious who he is now. The guy who was in the mouth of a humpback off the Cape for 30, 40 seconds, and David Abel, the great reporter at the Globe and filmmaker who has done the latest in the whale. You know, one of the parts of this movie that I really treasure, David Abel, is you, I think, capture, I want to hear what Michael thinks about it in a second, you capture the culture of the fishermen as well as anything I've seen. It's sort of like what it reminded me of. I said to Marjorie, when Seth Moulton started coming in our studio, who obviously did several tours of duty in Iraq, he's a congressman now, and talked about veterans and what they were like and how one of his missions was try to explain to non-veterans what their lives were like. And there's that sort of closed society. What did you learn about the culture of the fishermen from Michael and his colleagues down there on the Cape?
Well, I've been really fortunate to have spent a good amount of time with fishermen over the years, with my last film, Entangled, and the previous film I made, Lobster War. Mm-hmm. But I've never spent time with someone who does what Michael does, which is, pick up the catch from the bottom of the sea floor. And the
video of that is fabulous, by the way, but go ahead. It's fabulous.
Thank you. Fishing is one of the most dangerous jobs that there is. I mean, working on a lobster boat, there are all kinds of things that can go wrong. Amazingly, a lot of fishermen, not like Michael, somehow, I wrote a story about this some years ago, don't know how to swim and often sometimes get thrown off their boat. But what Michael does is a whole level of, a whole order of magnitude more dangerous. And I remember, to him, it's routine. Despite, the whale, despite his close encounters with sharks, when I went diving with him to film, I've been diving in lots of places, but that was probably the most nervous I've ever been to dive, because you just have to open up the so-called Sharktivity app and you can see in the summer the reports of sharks all over the place. And I kissed my my kids and held them tightly. I'm like, I hope I see you after this.
So one of the other things that does come through this film, Michael, is exactly what David said, how dangerous it is. The favorite, I hope you don't take this the wrong way, my favorite character in the film is not you, it's your mother. Your mother is absolutely otherworldly great. She wanted to pay you to stop. I want to repeat that. Pay you to stop diving. And you have a great line somewhere in the movie. You say, and it's talking about diving. It's not a love-hate relationship. It's a love, I shouldn't be doing this relationship. So particularly after the incredible experience you have, I know you're now getting into clamming or whatever it is. Why do you continue to do something that is so incredibly dangerous?
Well, I just got out of the water an hour ago. I was diving this morning. It gets me out of this world into a whole nother place, and it's the whole thing that I'm the only one that does this.
Yeah.
I mean, 10, 20, 30 years ago, there was a handful of divers, but I'm the last one left. So I go out and I'm the only one probably in the whole United States that makes a living diving for lobsters. And it's that whole idea that I'm not one of the masses and I go down and I can make a living doing this that nobody else does. And it's that feeling, and it's the feeling of just being really good at what I do, but also just being in that peaceful place away from the traffic, the people, the everything. I mean, when I go to work, I don't get in a car and get on a freeway. I go underwater. I mean, what's better than that? It's just every day I look forward to going under.
Boy, do you say it beautifully, I'll tell you.
Michael Packard, I'm a big chicken. I didn't go diving since I saw Jaws back in the 70s. But I want to know, why not just do what most lobstermen do and just throw out traps?
Because everybody does that. That's what
Is
you'd
that
say,
why?
right? Isn't that it?
Well, yeah. I mean, that's a big thing. Everybody does it, but it's also a pain in the butt. I mean, you got like 800 traps.
Yeah.
You got to bring them in every spring, and it's just you got to deal with all the stinky bait and people cutting your lines off. Lobster wars. I mean, it's all that just.
Okay, I have another question. I just want to
add something, because I don't think Michael would easily use this word, but I think it's about love. And at the bottom, I like to think of this film as a love story. And it's a story about a fisherman's love for the sea, a fisherman's love for being in and under the water, and ultimately a man's love for his family, for his kids, for his mom, for his wife. And that is ultimately the through line in my mind of this film. It's really what got him through that incredibly harrowing experience of being in the whale, and has gotten him through all the rest of it, and which we chronicle in the film.
By the way, part of the rest of it isn't like this is one experience in this guy, Michael Packard's life. He has a fish thing business off Costa Rica. He's gone to somewhere, San Jose or something, on a small plane, and the small plane crashes in the jungle. And, yet another day in the park for Michael Packard. We're talking to Michael Packard. He is the man who was not swallowed by a whale, but was in the mouth of the humpback. And David Abel, the filmmaker who made this beautiful film In the Whale.
Well, David, you captured that beautifully, talking about it being a love story. I also thought it was a love story for a part of Cape Cod, for Provincetown and Wellfleet, and the overhead shots of when you're driving down at the end of Route 6 and you see all those cottages, right on the ocean there, and the Wellfleet Pier. I mean, it made me really get weepy for a place that I worry about all the time because things are changing on the Cape. Does Michael know about the scene about his mom getting his first boat? Does he know about that?
Yes, no, he knows about that.
Michael, that was really a tearjerker story when you talked about your mom not having a lot of money, dad was gone, and it was your birthday. And tell us what happened when you looked outside on your birthday.
Well, first off, I want to say she didn't have very much money, and my brother, he disappeared hitchhiking across America with his girlfriend, and about a year later, she got the traveler's checks back that weren't cash, so she didn't have much money. And anyway, I woke up in the morning, and I always look out at the water first thing, and I looked out at the water, and then I looked down at the beach, and there's this brand new 14-foot skiff with a brand new 9.9 mercury on it. I was like, wow, look at that. That's a nice boat. And then we walked downstairs and my mom said, happy birthday. And she pointed out there and I was like, oh my God. But anyway, she used the money from those uncashed traveler's checks to buy that for me.
And you were a 10-year-old kid who had his own boat and could really strut around town, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, I wasn't strutting around town. I wasn't hanging on the street corners. I was out fishing all night.
Yeah. And you told a story about looking at another boat on shore while you had your own boat not securely tied up.
Another time you almost died, by the way.
Yeah, what happened?
Yes, that was my first near-death experience. I was in my boat and I was going around the tip of Provincetown, and the wind was blowing offshore, like into the bay, and saw this derelict boat on the beach, and I pulled my boat up, and the boat was all smashed up. I was like, I'm gonna grab the compass and whatever. I got my tools out, and then I popped my head up, and my boat was floating out into the bay, and I was like, oh God! So I ripped my clothes off, and I started swimming for it. I thought I was getting closer, and then the current caught me and just dragged me out farther and farther, and I could see the boats coming in, but I was farther out, so nobody could see me, and I was just treading water, and I was like, yeah, I'm dead. And I was only like 12 years old, and then this one guy just happened to swing wide, and he saw me, and he plucked me out of the water bare-ass naked. This 12-year-old
Of course,
kid.
bare-ass naked. What else would Michael be? You know, we forgot to play one soundbite I really wanted to play, and I should have brought this up when I was mentioning sort of the fishing community. This is one of Michael's fishing buddies explaining the trouble he had telling Michael's story to friends who were outside, or not from the Cape. Here he is.
I was telling everybody down in Fort Lauderdale about the story, and they're all doing, that's a fish tale. I said, no, you don't understand. Fisherman might tell a civilian a fish tale. No, but a fisherman doesn't go around and tell lies about other fishing. You all depend on each other. Your name would be mud. Yeah, I said you would have never been trusted again. It's just it's code. It's code within the ranks. Yeah, right. I don't tell lies like that, especially a whopper like that.
Michael, can we get back to your mother for 1 second? That one painting she was working on looked incredibly beautiful. She is, I assume, a pretty accomplished painter. Is that true?
That's an understatement.
Yeah,
she's amazing. It's like right when my dad left and my brother disappeared, she was painting on driftwood and selling them for $5 a piece on the side of Commercial Street, and now she gets $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 painting.
She should. And she's great.
She brought up all her children, sent all her children to college.
Wow.
She's just an amazing, strong woman.
So
yes.
she comes across as great.
David.
I'm sorry. I wanted to ask Michael one last question about somebody else in the film who the only player we do know, as I say, Josiah Mayo, we've met through the thing. So you had to fire him once because he fell asleep while he was supposed to be paying attention. Is this his normal behavior, or is that like an aberrational kind of thing with Josiah there, Michael? What's his deal?
Well, with Josiah, he was in that point of his life where it wasn't an aberration.
Got it. But he's better now, right? He sounds great to us, yes?
Yes.
Yeah, we parted ways for like 5 years, and then I fired my mate one day.
And he's
he was
back.
late all the time, and I called up Josiah. bit the bullet, and he's been with me ever since, and he's just 110%. And he's just waiting for you to come to his chocolate shop.
I've promised every year. It is happening 100%. Before you gentlemen go, starting with you, David, and then Michael, what do you hope people take away from this In the Whale?
Well, I'm still trying to grapple with that question. I mean, ultimately, it's a survival story, and I think at bottom, as I said, a love story. And as Marjorie said, it's Michael's love for the sea, it's Michael's love for his family, and it's also Michael's love for this community, this really distinct world that I've fallen in love with as well.
Michael, what's your hoped-for takeaway for those who see you, your family, your work, your loves, whatever? What is it?
I would say, number one, don't be afraid to do something that you really want to do, that you might be a little scared to do it or it's too dangerous, or I might not succeed. Do what you love and don't worry about the rest. It's all about happiness in what you do. And also it's about family. And I just want to bring up, I have some depression, and I think it's important that I share that with people, and that this work helps me tremendously with that affliction. And so I think it's important that anybody should do the work that they love and not settle for less.
Let me tell you, Michael, if you were one half as decent a guy as you appear in this film, you must be one hell of a person. We're thrilled
and a great dancer.
Meet you long distance. And David, you did brilliant work, and really thank you. Can we turn the mic on? By the way, I got to meet Michael Packard last summer in Provincetown, and he is that wonderful guy. The film, and Josiah Mayo is a wonderful friend who was the captain of the boat that day and beyond. It's a wonderful film. You should check it out, Shirley.
All right, thanks, Jim. So you just heard our conversation with David Abel and Fisherman Michael Packard. Their film is In the Whale, has a bunch of screenings throughout the rest of the summer, including this Sunday at the Worcester Ecotarium, Wednesday at Nantucket Dreamland, and August 2nd at the Wellfleet Preservation Hall with a Q&A with David Abel himself. So for more information on screenings, go to inthewhalefilm.com. And after a quick break, and after a strong week for Team Trump, we wanted to provide a little levity to the end of the week. So we're opening phone and text lines to talk about Boston, Rat City. Michelle Wu's got a new rat czar and a detailed plan for cracking down. We'll ask you what you think of the little furry pests in a moment. You're listening to Boston Public Radio 89.7 GBH.
Today on The Culture Show, it's our Arts and Culture Week in Review, with a look at the body energetic and erotic. We look at the enduring influence that fitness guru Richard Simmons and famed sex therapist Dr. Ruth had on society, plus Donald Trump's media-savvy instinct to create an iconic image, pumping his fist in the immediate aftermath of an assassination attempt. We take on that and more today at 2 on 89.7 GBH.
Funding for our programs comes from you. And Gentle Giant Moving Company, providing moving services since 1980. Helping to fight climate change by sponsoring Climb for Climate's inaugural stair climbing event August 10th at Harvard Stadium. More at climbforclimate.org. And Morningside Music Bridge, returning to Boston. The summer program shines a spotlight on young classical musicians from around the world, with concerts now through August 2nd at New England Conservatory. mmb.international.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy, Marjorie Ginzoff. She's back on Monday. Boston Globe business columnist Shirley Young is with me. We're streaming from the Boston Public Library, youtube.com/GBH News. By the way, you just heard Edgar's promo of their show
My mother was actually a friend of Dr. Roos. That's a story for another day. The Culture Show starts here live at the Boston Public Library in 20 minutes. So if you're here, don't go away. If you're not here, come on down. So we're going to end the show, as Shirley said. I've never heard anybody use the word levity in a sentence, but she did. In any case, we're going to go from whales to rats. Boston Mayor Michelle Wu says her administration is working to make the city a home for everyone except rats. And she's getting help from the nation's alleged top rodent expert. It's Bobby Corrigan. He has a PhD, urban rodentology. What does he tell his mother? He's helped New York City out with their rat problem. We won't hold that against him, but we want to hear from you about our rat problem here in Greater Boston. Our foreign producer, Rebecca Tauber, heard we were doing this segment, and she wrote in the following, quote, "The rats ate the engine of my car a week after I moved to Alston. No rat problems in Denver. Just saying." So is our rodent infestation affecting your quality of life? Or should we all stop worrying and learn to love the rats? Or if you don't do that, is there a solution for the rat infestation that would not cause stress for people like Cy Montgomery? Our number is 877-301-8970. We're a little bit behind, so if you want to participate in this discussion, give us a buzz soon at 877-301-8970. You have some rat experiences, I'm told.
I do. First of all, I think it's kind of funny that we need to hire Bobby Corrigan, who's got a PhD in urban rodentology, as if, our rats are smarter than anywhere else in the country, so we need someone with a doctorate, right?
Well, they're pretty smart so far because they're winning, right?
That's true. Yes, I live in the suburbs, but, we also have rodents, we also have mice, we have squirrels, and, I had a rats and car problem too. We were away, end of December, we were gone for 2 weeks, parked our car in our driveway. And
because your garage is full, you told me, with
exactly,
crap.
with crap, and so of course, nobody parks in their garage. That's where you store your junk. And so we go away, we come back, and when I come back home, the check engine light turns on, and I was like, what's going on? And I take it to the mechanic, and he says, it looks like you had some mice or some squirrels living in your engine, because now there's like soy-based
around the wires
insulation, so they were eating in the winter. There's nothing to eat except, I guess, the soy from my car. It was $600 to repair these wires.
Well, it's going to go worse. The climate change, as it gets hotter, I didn't know this, but I know it from the reading, is rats breed more successfully and frequently in warmer weather.
Oh, really?
So as climate change is upon us, one of the other nightmares from climate change is more rats. By the way, I should declare myself. I can live with mice. I don't like them. Rats and snakes are the only two things that I cannot coexist with.
How can you live with mice?
Well, mice are, they're little, and I don't like them. I'm going to be clear. But a rat, there are stories. We don't have much time, so I'm not going to get into this in great depth. There are stories, if you just Google this, in Somerville and Cambridge and Boston, someone comes home, goes into the bathroom, and what's popping its head out of the toilet? A rat. That is not, it's infrequent, but it's still, one time is one time too many. So we want to know if you are having a rat issue in your neck of the woods here, and if you are, how you're dealing with it, and if you're not, if you're sort of cool about the whole thing, we'd like to hear how you do that.
So let's hear from Ethan from Westminster.
Hey, Ethan, what's up?
It's great to be on the show. It's really funny you're talking about this because I had a friend just this week whose BMW was totaled because rats ate out the bottom of it.
Wow.
He's in Worcester, and now he's having to go through the process of seeing if insurance will pay for it. It's a whole rigmarole because if the car is stored outside, then insurance likes to fight that it's not their responsibility. And it hasn't personally affected me beyond, commiserating with my friend about his lost BMW, but it's seriously made him reconsider, especially where he's storing his car, and especially looking at the fine print of his insurance about where they stipulate his car should be stored.
I didn't know rats could drive. How do rats total a car?
They chewed into the engine, and they ripped up all the wiring on the inside. They made a nest, and it happened over the course of a weekend. It was only a couple of days.
Oh, wow.
So is there an end to the story to the insurance, or we don't know yet?
He's still working through it. It just happened last weekend. So he's still waiting to hear back.
So actually, people need a rat clause in their auto insurance, apparently. Let us know, Ethan. Drop us a text after your friend has a resolution. Thank you so much for calling. The number is 877-301-8970. I don't know what happens in your semi-suburban life. When I live in Inman Square in Cambridge, when a rat crosses the street, it is like a major trauma-inducing. I don't mean a rat like over my feet. Did you see that video a couple years ago? Forget Pizza Rat. We've all seen Pizza Rat a million times on the subway in New York City. Did you ever see the rat? Was this a Boston thing? I can't remember. Where the rat is crawling up the guy's pants leg. Have you seen that one?
Was this one on the T or something?
It may be. I think it was on the T. It may have been in Boston. And I don't, wherever it was, it is totally horrifying. Celeste in Hyde Park, welcome to the show.
Yes, good afternoon. I love the show. I listen every day.
I hope so.
I would
Thank
like
you.
to say that in the olden days, back in Beacon Hill in the South End, there was ferrets.
Yeah,
People
ferrets.
had ferrets as animals.
Yeah.
And then there was a gentleman that had a lot of ferrets that they placed the ferrets out at night, and they took care of the rat problem.
Oh.
Also, the gentleman that spoke about eating some of his wires in his car, that happened to my brother.
Really? Well, your
And
brother
he
ate
took
the
it to the-
wires in the car, or the rat ate the
No,
wires?
the rats,
sorry.
and the animals ate the wires in the car and almost caused this car to catch on fire when you started the car.
Celeste,
That
before
is
you
the
go,
truth.
how big is a ferret? I don't even know what a ferret is. How big is a ferret?
It's almost like a little cat. Half of a cat.
Oh.
Yeah, people have them as pets.
Well, can I tell you something? I'm not questioning the authenticity. Oh, there's a ferret. An authenticity of your thing. Thank you, Aiden. But have you seen the video? I guess I'm a little too obsessed with rat videos. There's a rat video from Chicago. That's where Joelle was from, who sang for us before, where there is a cat chasing a rat. This is on a downtown street in Chicago. And all of a sudden, the rat turns around, stares at the cat, and then starts chasing the damn cat down the street. And so I think the problem, even if we worked on Beacon Hill years ago, rats are so huge, like these Norway rats or whatever we have here, that I'm not sure a ferret is going to do the trick. But Celeste, thank you.
I believe ferrets will do the trick.
Well,
we need
ferrets-
to get them back.
We need the ferret. We'll mention it to Mayor Wu on August 6th when she's here. We'll talk about the ferrets. Thank you, Celeste.
So I have a dog, and I've always wondered, why doesn't the dog kill the mice? You know, why is it only cats?
What is the answer?
I don't know why.
Didn't Google it or
yeah,
something?
I don't. They're now. I need to train my dog to kill the mice and to get rid of rats. Just other than lazing around.
I've
right?
had when my kids leave their dogs off and I'm walking the dogs, they can be lying down on the ground and a mouse runs by. They don't even budge.
Oh, really?
They don't even. So I don't understand. Maybe there's not like a.
So our mechanic said what he recommended is take Irish Spring soap because it has a pungent smell, and to stick it in your engine, and that might keep the mice away. And then when I got
Irish Spring soap,
Irish Spring soap, and then also when they replace the wires, they have this special anti-rodent wires now that they put on.
You know what? The other thing, you can wrap a ferret around the wire, and that actually, I'm told, is a really good.
So let's listen to another caller, Cullen
Please.
from East Boston.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, please.
So I was in Dorchester with two of my friends, one from high school, and they had a big, beautiful dog named Hercules, no longer with us, sadly.
Oh.
And we were out when we were having a nice event and all enjoying each other's company. And Hercules lunges into the darkness and comes up with a rat. And it was horrific. It was really gruesome, and the dog was walking around through the group, very proud of his catch. But really kind of turned off the evening for everyone else because we were confronted by the harsh reality of what it looks like when a dog does, in fact, catch a rat.
So maybe it's good that my dog doesn't eat rats?
I would be inclined to tell you don't want to deal with your rats in that manner. I truly think it has to do with food sources. And I think
it is.
If we all deal with our food and waste a lot better, we might end up dealing with the root cause instead of treating remedies.
Isn't there, hey, Colin, that was a good call. Thank you. Am I not right that they don't use garbage cans on Beacon Hill because the roads are so narrow? They just put garbage bags out. There's some part in downtown Boston where there's a rat problem, but they just use garbage bags. And obviously, you do garbage bags, you're going to have rats. By the way, because Jamie is away for a week, our colleagues decided they couldn't resist an AI image of me, which is all Jamie does as our lead producer. This is apparently, is this me as a rat? Is that what it is? Oh,
Doesn't
there it
even
is.
look like you.
Actually,
I think I look pretty good. I think I look pretty good there. Without the beard, of course. No, sort of with the beard, actually. Renee and Pepperell, you're next on Boston Public Radio. We're talking about rats in Greater Boston. Hey there.
Hey, Jim. Thank you for having me.
Pleasure.
So the only good rat is a Banksy rat, I think, you know?
Got it.
But
it's a
anyway,
Banksy reference. You got to Google that and figure it out. Go ahead.
I want to talk about prevention. So,
Please.
the other caller who mentioned the food and the trash and all of that stuff. Why don't they have, just like theirs, rat-proof containers? And also, the restaurants need to have rat-proof containers. The other thing is rats go after dog poop. So if people picked up after their dogs, they actually eat that, and that's a nutrient source for them. And I do hope that when they do go after the rats, they're not using cruel practices like those tapes that they stick to. And I hope they're not using rodenticides because, you know, one owl can take care of 3,000 rats in a year.
So it's not
And
ferrets. We need owls. Is that where you're going?
Yeah, we need owls, any kind of raptor. They'll go after them.
You know, you raised an issue. I don't want to go too heavy on this, but one of my pet peeves in the world, in my top 5, are people who don't clean up after their dogs on public streets. And you mentioned that rats eat that. My attitude is, if you catch a dog owner who doesn't clean up after the dog, they should eat it. I mean, it is such an antisocial behavior. It's horrible. Renee, thank you very much for the call. Do you not care about that issue or no?
Oh no, everybody has
Do you
to
have a
pick
dog?
up. I do.
Oh, that dog you just talked about.
Dog. Yeah, we have to pick up, and so. But
do you pick up?
Yeah, of course.
You don't do one of those things where you look around and see if nobody's looking, and then you just leave it there.
No, I am so conscientious about this. I take 2 bags, at least 2 bags with me in case the dog has a second one.
Oh, that's so. That is really
but I was
communal
going to
kind
say.
of thing.
I was going to say. Besides mice and rodents, we also have raccoons in the suburbs.
I'm fine with raccoons.
But with the trash cans, my husband puts a giant rock on top of the trash so that the raccoons and other animals won't get into the trash.
You know, my younger daughter went to South Korea, and what we had a couple of weeks ago, we had a woman on who had a dog bar. That woman had a dog bar, right? The canine thing is where you bring a dog kind of thing. She was in South Korea, in Seoul. They have raccoon bars where raccoons run around the bars, and they're apparently very friendly to humans, and they also, I don't know if they're trained or not, they reach in your pockets, apparently.
And they pick your
and try to
pockets?
pick your pockets,
Ooh.
yeah. But apparently they're fine. Kate and Needham, we got a minute plus for you. Welcome to the show. We're talking about rats in Greater Boston. Hi.
Hi there.
Hi.
So I am a professional gardener in a very wealthy area.
Okay.
And one time I was taking apart a planter, and I had both of my arms like elbow deep into the planter when a rat popped out of it.
Oh my God.
Ew.
And?
I screamed and I ran away. There are a few things that actually that get me, and that was one of them.
So wait a second. As a gardener, you don't encounter rats on a semi-regular basis?
I'm not alive, but I do encounter them and rabbits a lot.
Well, rabbits. I mean, everybody loves a rabbit, don't they? Hey, Kate, I'm glad you're well. Thank you. We're going to squeeze in Anita from Rhode Island because she has a response to the dogs not eating rats kind of thing. Anita, what's the answer quickly for Shirley Leung here?
Very quickly, my son has a golden retriever and would always be happy to come in the house. So one evening as he's bouncing toward my door, he looked kind of strange, but I didn't have my glasses on, so I said, well, wait a minute, what's going on? And as he got closer, I realized he looked odd because he has a mouse tail hanging out of his mouth.
Oh.
And he was rather upset with me when I wouldn't let him in the house because he was such a good boy as far as he was concerned. But I had to be so careful all during the summer months to check his house before opening the sliding glass door. So,
Yeah, when anybody comes in your house with a tail coming out of their mouth, I would say it's cause for caution. Anita, thank you very much for the call. We really appreciate it. I just realized I threw out the thank yous, so I'm going to pull them out of the garbage. And now I'll thank you. We're done. Shirley, you were fabulous, and thank you
thanks
very
for having
much.
me.
Can we hear it for Shirley Leung, please, who sat in brilliantly
for Marjorie. You can keep it up with us 24/7 by way of our podcast or check out our TikTok page of Boston Public Radio. Tune in Monday for the NAA.
What's trending? What's interesting? What's going on around town? We're talking all things arts and culture on The Culture Show, next on GBH 89.7.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you. And Carr Financial Group, independent fiduciaries committed to guiding investors through the changing economy with wealth management, financial, and retirement planning services. Consultations can be scheduled at carrfinancial.com. GBH is proud to celebrate Disability Pride Month. Join GBH as we honor the history, achievements, experiences, and struggles of the disability community.
If you're a GBH sustainer, thank you. Your ongoing support keeps this station your reliable source for news and information any time of day. And if you've recently received a new credit card in the mail, we've made it easy to update.
Fund, proud to support this station's arts and culture programming.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Lakshmi Singh. President Biden is fighting COVID, as well as several more calls today from congressional Democrats to exit the 2024 presidential race. His rocky debate performance last month deepened fears that Biden's advanced age might cost Democrats the White House and Congress. But political analyst and former South Carolina State Representative Bakari Sellers tells NPR the public pressure campaign is not helping.
Democrats have done more damage to Joe Biden since June 27th, which was the day of the debate, than Joe Biden did to himself on the day of the debate.
President Biden says he plans to resume campaigning next week. In a statement today, his campaign criticized his rival's speech at the Republican National Convention last night in Milwaukee. Biden says former President Donald Trump, quote, focused on his own grievances. Trump spoke about the economy, immigration, and other issues. He also addressed the recent attack on his life. The director of the Secret Service has confirmed that she will testify next week before the House Oversight Committee. Lawmakers are demanding answers following the attempted assassination of former President Trump. Here's NPR's Ryan Lucas.
Secret Service Director Kimberly Cheadle's appearance Monday before the House Oversight Committee will be just 9 days after a gunman tried to kill former President Trump at a rally in Butler, Pennsylvania. The panel's Republican chairman, James Comer, says Americans are demanding answers from Cheadle about what Comer calls the historic security failures at the rally that day. That includes how a gunman was able to get onto a roof with a clear line of sight on the former president. Questions also have been raised after it emerged that the Secret Service knew about a threat before Trump took the stage that day, but still allowed him to go out and speak. Ryan Lucas, NPR News, Washington.
The top United Nations court has ruled that Israel's occupation of the Palestinian territories is illegal under international law. Villa Marx reports the landmark decision from the International Court of Justice calls for Israeli settlement activity to cease as soon as possible.
Judges at the ICJ Friday said Israel's government should end acts of settlement in the West Bank and East Jerusalem, calling the occupation illegal. The United Nations General Assembly first requested early last year that the court, based in the Dutch capital city of The Hague, examine the legal circumstances of Israel's occupation, as well as Israeli practices and policies directed towards the Palestinian people. The opinion issued by the court is neither legally binding nor easily enforceable, but despite its largely advisory nature, it still carries powerful political weight as the first instance in which the ICJ has drawn definitive conclusions about an occupation that is now well into its 6th decade. For NPR News, I'm Willem Marks.
The Dow Jones Industrial Average is down 385 points, or nearly 1%, at 40,277. This is NPR News.
From the GBH newsroom in Boston, I'm Craig Lamolt. The proposed redevelopment of Boston's White Stadium has hit a major milestone, with the city's Planning and Development Agency voting to approve the renovation to the facility in Franklin Park. GBH's Esteban Bustillos has more.
The project would revamp White Stadium so it can be used as a home for a National Women's Soccer League team and an important site for Boston school sports. The BPDA approval means that vision is one step closer to reality, but the proposal is still facing hurdles. That includes separate approval that's needed from the city's Parks Commission. There's also a pending lawsuit from community members who say the renovation will mean the stadium will effectively be privatized, a claim the city rejects. Esteban Bustillos, GBH News 89.7.
Today's widespread internet outage has been having an impact on travelers at Logan Airport. New Hampshire's Ellen Howard didn't find out her flight to Alaska was canceled until she got to Logan this morning.
We were kind of thinking maybe it wasn't real because, you have that moment, it's like maybe it's just a mistake. But then we heard about some of the glitches with the software, and so that made sense. Decided to put it together.
Logan has seen more than 200 delays and more than 60 cancellations so far today. The outage has caused hospitals in Mass General Brigham system to cancel all previously scheduled non-urgent surgeries, procedures, and medical visits. In sports, the Red Sox host start the second half of the season tonight in Los Angeles with a weekend series against the Angels. Game time is at 10:10. In the forecast, sunny and in the 80s today, and sun and clouds tomorrow, a high in the mid-80s. This is GBH.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Fisher Investments. Fisher is committed to helping clients stay on track to reach their financial goals and enjoy a comfortable retirement. FisherInvestments.com. Investing in securities involves the risk of loss.
This is The Culture Show, live from our GBH studio at the Boston Public Library. I'm Edgar B. Herwick III. Jared Bowen is away. I'm joined by GBH News host Henry Santoro and Culture Show contributor Lisa Simmons. She is the artistic and executive director of the Roxbury International Film Festival and program manager at Mass Cultural Council. It's time now for our Arts and Culture Week in Review. Here's what it sounded like.
Hello?
The nominations for the 76th Annual Emmy Awards were just announced, and it was a good day for The Bear, which set a new Emmy record in the comedy category.
After 31 years of teaching fitness, I have come to a conclusion that Americans are not overweight. They're just under-exercised. Americans are sweating over a lot of things right now, but not their workouts.
In the early 80s, people did not talk about sexuality.
90210 is the Beverly Hills zip code, which is where the Walsh family is now living and which is where the whole show takes place.
Good evening. We begin with breaking news from New Mexico, where just a short time ago, the criminal case against Alec Baldwin was dismissed.
If there was a medal for Olympic uniforms, it seems Mongolia would win gold. Look at this.
Wow.
The internet's gone nuts for the intricately embroidered vests, pleated robes, accessories inspired by traditional Mongolian attire.
Well, as you just heard, the Emmy nominations are out again. We'll look at the usual suspects, the snubs and surprises. Then we remember Bob Newhart, the comedian who was best known as an everyman who powered 2 separate sitcoms. From there, we'll also take a look at the legacy of fitness guru Richard Simmons, the self-proclaimed Pied Piper of pounds, and the unlikely TV sex therapist Dr. Ruth, plus another loss this week, Shannen Doherty, the actress who played the 1990s bad girl that everyone loved to hate. Finally, later in the show, we will do Follow-Up Friday, which is where we do an update on some of the stories we've been keeping track of over the weeks. But first, we do talk about the Emmys. Now, we say the Emmy nominations are out again because this is the second time this year that we're having the Emmys. This is due to the fact that there was the writer's strike, which, even though the voting was on schedule, pushed the Emmys from last year to January. Now, Emmy nominations for the Emmys, which will be happening in September. If you can keep that all straight in your head, actually, it doesn't really matter. What happened? What did we see here in these Emmy nominations?
Yet again, they can just do whatever they want.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter, right?
But I think they do need them twice a year because there's so much to see on TV.
Right.
That's a great point. So what caught your eye about this, Henry Santoro?
Well, The Bear, of course, is one of the shows that I am very partial to because I love to cook. And all you got to do is follow me on social media and you'll see more food than you can ever imagine. And I just love the premise of this, and I think that 23 nominations for The Bear is going to really catapult them into the stratosphere. And, of course, Curb Your Enthusiasm also in the running, and, of course, their final season.
Yeah.
And you got to love that show, and they, they tap into all the local comedians. I mean, it's pretty amazing that it's like a who's who of the Martha's Vineyard on that show, including Pat Lyons, who owns several restaurants up and down the street behind us.
Exactly.
Lisa, for you, do you follow this closely and then sort of decide what you're going to watch over the next couple months?
Yes, I mean, I think The Bear is a great show. I think that this year's Emmys are a little bit different, I think, because the biggies are gone, right? We have things like Succession and those other shows that are no longer, they're either on hiatus or they did their final season.
Yeah, Ted Lasso is over, which
so now it opens this door for all these other shows like Murders in the Building and The Bear and The Crown and Night Detective. So I think that it'll be exciting to see what happens. These shows have been around, and Reservation Dogs, which has been amazing for 3 years. If you have not seen it, you should see it. Finally gets a nod. So I think it's going to be exciting to see that these shows now have the opportunity. I think some of the snubs are really interesting, like Emma Stone for The Curse and Cynthia Nixon for Gilded Age. With Christine Baranski, we love her, but I really think that Cynthia Nixon made this major career move to not do a show in order to do this show. So and one of the interesting things too is that YouTube shows are now eligible for the Emmys, completely snubbed. Like that Hot One show where celebrities eat hot wings or chips or something like that. I can't imagine why I didn't make it. But and I also think the interesting thing is about this whole controversy between comedy and drama. Is The Bear really a comedy?
Absolutely not.
It's absolutely not. And it's
riveting.
But one of the things that's interesting to me is the fact that because it's been sort of listed as a comedy, that the headline in a lot of stuff is The Bear sets a record with 23 nominations for a comedy. And yet, the show that got the most nominations for this Emmys is Shogun. And actually, let's hear a little bit of Shogun. Yeah. Here is Cosmo Jarvis as John Blackthorne in Shogun. This is when Blackthorne caused a diversion to sneak into trying to sneak Lord Taranga out of Osaka Castle. Let's have a listen.
This is unacceptable. Peering into ladies' private quarters? It's not proper! Worse than that, it's vulgar! Unholy perversion! Am I the only man present who treasures the purity of a woman? No! Woman's virtue is our glory! A blight on us all!
Is it nominated as screams per capita?
I'm sorry. I feel like we needed
second?
this. I feel
Possibly.
like the world needed Shogun, and I think
How come?
Just because it's like this gritty, warring sort of you can get into it, get away from the reality of the world, and really focus on this beautifully acted, beautifully shot, and costume-wise. So I think it's great. I think it's great.
So the world of TV, a number of figures who became, absolute legends for a lot of people, in no small part because of the world TV, passed away this week. So we want to take a moment and look at the legacy of some of them. Let's start with Bob Newhart, best known as TV's Everyman. He died at the age of 94 this week. Famous for 2 separate sitcoms, and perhaps, kind of maybe most famously for linking those two together in the final episode of his second sitcom, Newhart, which references the first one. Let's have a listen to that famous final scene of Newhart.
Honey, wake up. You won't believe the dream I just had. But don't you want to hear about it?
All right, Bob. What is it?
I was an innkeeper in this crazy little town in Vermont.
I'm happy for you. Good night.
And so there it is. It's sort of the much parodied after the fact, everything was just a dream.
It was amazing. And his wife actually came up with that. He talks about his wife who came up with that, said, hey, you should do this. You should actually, the end should be you're in bed with Suzanne Plachette, your wife from the Newhart show. I love Bob Newhart. I watched him all the time. I thought it was great.
Always
comedy.
the funniest
Always
guy in the room. Always the most low-key guy in the room.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, he had a manner that was like almost
that
nobody
deadpan,
else.
Yeah, that deadpan comedy.
And that stammering.
Is gold. That's comedy gold.
Yeah.
Richard Simmons, not the calmest man in the room, sort of in some ways the opposite of Bob Newhart. Just keep moving evangelist. He combined compassion and camp, motivated people to get out there, do the fitness thing. I think of Sweatin' to the Oldies and all of the commercials for Sweatin' to the Oldies. He was a fixture on our television screens as part of talk shows, as part of, commercials, everything.
I have had the opportunity to interview him not once but twice. And I can honestly say that this guy is on 24/7.
Yeah.
I mean, he was just always upbeat, always moving around, jumping around, trying to get you to jump around with him. If you in the middle of a radio interview, which is what I did on both occasions, if we were playing a song to break up the interview for a little bit, he would not stop. And I've interviewed people where when you're in a break like that, when you're playing a song, they just want to not say anything, not do anything. They just want to kind of regroup in their head and kind of chill out until you come back live again.
Yeah.
But Simmons was just a crazy man.
Which is why it was so strange that he fell off the face of the earth.
Yeah.
That he decided in the 60s that it was like this was it. This was in his 60s he was like, then they had that host show, right? Missing Richard Simmons. He had an amazing career, though. I mean, I think it was really important that he did change the whole idea around fitness and what fitness means. But what things I did find out about him, that he was almost a priest. He was very devout Catholic. He did appear in 2 Federico Fellini movies.
Which sounds exactly right.
Doesn't
right? Like of any filmmaker's films that Richard Simmons should be in,
it should be
sort of Fellini.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
And he replaced Trebek. So he was definitely an icon and a culture icon. It was a great loss.
Another thing that I find remarkable is during his heyday, while he was seeming to be everywhere on your television screens, he was like traveling
all the
200 days a year.
All the
and
time.
he was doing appearances like with you, Henry, doing like local interviews and stuff like that. He was also going to local gyms, and apparently up until like the late 2000s, for like $12 or $15, you could get a private sort of fitness lesson with Richard Simmons.
I don't think he owned long pants.
Probably not.
Health, in another way of thinking, was the purview of Dr. Ruth. Sexual health and sexual activity, and maybe what we might think of as a different and hopefully healthier relationship with our ideas about sex. I mean, Dr. Ruth Westheimer, she died at the age of 96 this week. Talk about a unique figure in the American culture. What was it about Dr. Ruth that allowed her to do what she did?
Well, it was her stature, it was her voice, it was her, her appearance. She was the whole package, albeit a small package.
Yeah, 4'7", 4'8".
You weren't through until Dr. Ruth was through with you.
Yeah, I mean, she was definitely a cultural icon. I think it's also true that she was non-threatening, right? And she wasn't afraid to say the things that she said on TV. And I think it was like this whole, point and this whole idea of just be open about it. And like she talks about, I wasn't talking about rock and sex or anything. I was talking about that we need to have communication and we need to talk about these things. And I think that her ability to bring people out, to feel comfortable to talk about that, celebrities, other people, really, I think, sort of flipped the switch on the sexual revolution.
It was sex education.
Yeah.
And she really led the charge on that.
Mm-hmm. And she started in radio. I mean, essentially, like she had sort of a career turn at one point, and she'd been working at Planned Parenthood in New York City, and that was sort of when she found her vocation. And she talks about how she was sort of shocked. She's in New York City and she's working these about how frank people were in their way of speaking about sex. And she did a talk to a group of like radio operators
Yep.
in the New York City area and saying like we need to be talking about this kind of stuff on radio. And one of them said, well, why don't you try it? And she had a little 15 minutes sort of show, Sexually Speaking, which aired after midnight and was like a ratings juggernaut. And then from there, everything else takes off. But you hit on something, Lisa, and I wonder what you both think about this. Do you think it is the fact that she sort of had that German accent, that she was a small woman, that allowed her to speak with this kind of frankness, and people were willing to hear it in a way that they might not from somebody else?
I do. I think that her accent played a big role in it, and I think that the way that she was an expert. I mean, you can't deny that she was the sex ed expert, and she had a lot to say. She had a lot to bring to the table. And if you look at the time that she was at the height of her game, it was the sexual revolution.
Right.
Yeah.
And she was leading the charge. And here was this woman with this incredibly great and unique voice.
Yeah.
And just so unassuming, talking about sex.
Exactly. And I think that because her show was, first originally aired at night, it was sort of like you could listen to it and other people weren't here and you listened, to it, and people really, and then it sort of like just gained this cult following, and then she just gained this cult following because I think it is true. Like I said before, she was unassuming, she was non-threatening, and so I think that, the loss of her is great.
Before we move off this topic, we've talked so much about her voice. Let's remind ourselves what she sounded like. Here's Dr. Ruth making her first appearance on The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson in 1982. She's promoting her book at that time, which was called Dr. Ruth's Guide to the Sexually Perplexed.
You just say sex problems, and right away, why do people feel uncomfortable about that?
First of all, it is because that's the way we were brought up. That between the waist and the knees, there's nothing.
Ah.
As if it doesn't exist. Except maybe for having babies.
Right.
But not for pleasure, and not for anything that might be conducive to some good feelings.
Yeah.
Dr. Ruth. Finally, we want to take a moment and remember Shannen Doherty. So this is an actress. She, in many ways, was sort of an avatar, an epitome of 1990s pop culture, in her role on Beverly Hills 90210, smash hit at the time. She died after a very long battle with cancer this week at the age of 53. Of course, the thing with her is that, largely she played a bad girl on TV, but also developed this bad girl reputation in real life. One that I think now, not just in her death, but in the way that she handled her final years of her life has been reevaluated.
Oh, it has to be, because she was really, once she left the spotlight, and especially once she started battling cancer the way that she did, you realize that she was an actress,
right.
And she was a real person, and it was time to really, feel for her. And she really, she fought the fight. There's no question about it. And when she died, social media exploded because that was our time. That was 90210 was everybody watched that, and now social media was the perfect place to really mourn Shannen Doherty.
Right. It's really interesting because there was that problem where the people couldn't distinguish between her character and her, and then she was really getting the short end of the stick, and she was only on 90210 for 4 years, and they say when she left, the best part of the show left, but it was because people felt like she was being difficult, and it's true, like social media came on and said, oh my gosh, this is so awful, I'm so terrible. I read one thing that someone said, I'm so sorry for getting the newsletter that said I hate Brenda. There was a whole newsletter about hating her, and to have to live with that, and then have to live with the cancer. But I think that she really, 90210 was a seminal piece. It was certainly during the 80s for women. During that time, it was really empowering to be a teenage girl. There was, the vagina monologues, Thelma and Louise, all of these other things that were going on. And so I just feel like, it's a sad thing, but I'm glad that she's being remembered for her work in a positive way, as opposed to what was happening when she was actually doing that show. And she was on Heathers, and she was on Little House on the Prairie.
Yeah.
Like these are things she'd grown up as a child actress.
Absolutely, which is a difficult way to grow up, as we all know. And I think, we are getting to the point where, as a culture, I think we're showing a little bit more grace to folks who did grow up in these difficult Hollywood environments as child actors, especially during that era.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
All right, well, we're going to step away just for a minute, but up next, concerts return to the MFA Courtyard. That and more is coming your way on The Culture Show. Stay with us.
The Culture Show is made possible in part by a generous contribution from the Fiducia Fund, proud to support this station's arts and culture programming.
From the GBH News Center of Investigative Reporting.
From homeless to homeowner, and now a fervent environmental activist, Monica found an affordable house in Providence, but she later learned there was a problem with the neighborhood.
When you open your windows, do you smell something? What is it?
Noxious port emissions.
Why does it all have to be on top of us?
It's likely one reason why the asthma rate in Rhode Island ranked as the highest in the nation in 2021. I'm Chris Burrell. Our investigative series, Poisoned Ports, is available at gbhnews.org.
Funding for our programs comes from you. And Revolve Dance Project, presenting live music and dance performances on Sunday, July 21st at RISD Auditorium in downtown Providence. Shows at 2 and 7. Tickets and more information at revolvedanceproject.com. And Boston Children's Museum, presenting The Summer of Curiosity, where you can play, create, and wonder about the world around you. From Winnie the Pooh to the Outdoor Curiosity Kitchen. Learn more at bostonchildrensmuseum.org.
I'm Arun Roth. Coming up on GBH's All Things Considered, we'll have the latest on the impact of today's global internet outage at local hospitals and at Logan Airport. The contentious plan to renovate Boston's White Stadium received a key approval. And we'll hear how community gardens are holding up amid this summer's intense heat. Those stories and all the day's news starting at 4 on GBH's All Things Considered.
Welcome back to The Culture Show, broadcasting live from our GBH studio at the Boston Public Library.
Thank you.
I'm Edgar B. Herwick III with GBH's Henry Santoro and Culture Show contributor Lisa Simmons, who is artistic and executive director of the Roxbury International Film Fest and program manager at Mass Cultural Council. If you are just tuning in, it is our Arts and Culture Week in Review, which includes the return of concerts to the Courtyard at the MFA. Henry, I have a suspicion that outdoor summer concerts is a thing that you are probably generally interested in. This MFA story, this is something that's been going on since 1983. They've done these series with concerts in the Courtyard. And what caught my eye this week is the fact that it's kind of really almost back to full steam. So they'll have 7 this season. The first one was last night. It opened with the Afro-Latin act Quintepeñas. And in previous years, they haven't been up to 7 because they were away for the pandemic, and then they've slowly been working their way back. But this is also in the context of, I think I'm seeing a lot of the usual and new outdoor concert stuff in this city really picking back up again.
I think so too, and I think we can credit Boston Mayor Michelle Wu for that, for expanding the arts in this city the way that she has. You know, the arts used to be, you could see so many outdoor shows back in the 70s, concerts on the Common, for instance. Rod Stewart for $2.50. Or, I mean, it was just so many, Dr. John. I mean, the list is endless. But I am such a fan of music at the MFA. I think that when you can go into a museum and make some beautiful noise, that you're only going to benefit by it. And I say that because my old radio station, WFNX, we used to have concerts at the MFA. We would invite like Frank Turner, Airborne Toxic Event, Vampire Weekend. And what we would do is we would send the CDs to the folks at the MFA. They would listen to the music, and then they would pick out the gallery that fit the act the best. And,
Nice.
and then we would invite, 50, 60, 70 people in, and they would get this private, 5, 6, 7 song concert from a really tremendous band. So I love the fact that the MFA has brought this back. You can do no wrong with it. And And it's such a tremendous way to bring people together. You go into the courtyard, so you're walking through this visual expanse of some of the most beautiful art in the world, and then
you got a concert outside.
And then it's music to your ears.
Pretty nice.
Exactly.
Plus the galleries remain open.
Right. I mean, I think that's the most it's the most wonderful combination of art and music. I mean, Kristen Hoskins, who is the director of public programs there, said it perfectly. The museum has celebrated music as part of art and form within the museum for so long, and that's important. I mean, I think that there are some incredible acts, and one of the things I love about this series is it's not just having bands come and music there. They're choosing music that is that people are telling stories, right? Like, so you have this incredible band from Zimbabwe. You have black folk music, another band doing black folk music and telling stories of Afrofuturism. And that, to me, is exciting, that you're not just going to hear this music, but you're learning something, and you're learning a story about a culture and about a different place. And that's what I think is exciting about it.
And speaking about storytelling that you can encounter outside, to the Rose Kennedy Greenway next week is a new exhibition with a focus on climate change and global warming. This is a two-part installation from artist Lanny Asuncion. It's entitled Songland Sea, Vi Water Warming, and Binakal Blessing. And this really caught your eye, Lisa. Why?
I think because I think that people are really paying attention to climate change. I think what they're doing on the Rose Kennedy Greenway, giving that space for local artists to really express themselves, is really important. I think that this particular piece is important because just recently the Mayor's Office of Arts and Culture got a $3 million grant from the Mellon Foundation.
Yeah, they announced that yesterday.
They announced that yesterday, and that probably bleeds into the New York City stuff that we're going to talk about. But what's really exciting about it, it's about unmovement, unmonument, remonument, and demonument, and this whole conversation around taking these public art pieces, oftentimes temporary, but having conversations and dialogue around them, like the Embrace statue. So I think it's really important to have, public art like this that is helping, again, tell a story, an important story, and have artists tell that story in a different way.
I think also in the artist statement for this, the artist is talking about the fact that the construction initially of the John Fitzgerald Expressway back in the 50s, and then the Big Dig, which happened from 91 to 2006, that allowed the Rose Kennedy Greenway to eventually be there, is kind of part of the story of the problem writ large. And I like the bravery of being able to put something in a space and say, also, this space has been problematic over time. This has contributed to the problem, but we're still telling the story of what has happened in this space in full.
And there's been so many great stories told in that space from diverse voices, and I think that that's what's really important too, using that
space. From the moment it opened,
right.
that space has been a tremendous attraction for the city. You go because you never know what you're going to see. And so it piques your interest all the time. And, I go by there a lot because I always go to James Hook Lobster.
Oh, yeah.
Food again.
Got to get that lobster roll. But you're always paying attention to what is happening on that greenway.
Right.
And it's not a big expanse of space, but boy, is it big in stature.
I know, amazing. Can you remember? Do we remember when it was the Big Dig?
Yes, of course.
I know. Amazing transformation, huh?
It really is. So speaking of spaces that are somewhat legendary in this city, the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum is, of course, a beloved, one of the crown jewels of Boston. And its founder, Isabella Stewart Gardner, died 100 years ago this week. She, of course, was the pioneering, art-loving bon vivant who both lived upstairs and, created this museum, which is, going strong 100 years later. Isabella Stewart at 100 years after her death, what do we think?
Well, she was a superstar. She was a trailblazer. She was a hipster. To know,
yeah.
I mean,
Yes.
walking the rumors of her walking a lion down Boylston Street and Packard Street. She would, she knew what she wanted. She had a vision that she was able to afford to make happen.
Yeah.
And I would love to have met Isabella Stewart Gardner because she was in the forefront of the art that she was bringing in from all over the world. She was into the music scene. If she were alive today, she'd be at Big Night Live tonight.
Right, but no, I mean, exactly. Talk about having an incredible patron of the arts, right?
Oh.
And the building of the Gardner Museum as never really a private residence, but always with the idea that the public would be able to have access to that. I mean, and you talk about how, she was like, this person that was basically unapologetic. And I love when she talks about that she was intentionally quite eccentric, because eccentric women, during those times, you had more independence.
I find that fascinating.
You had more independence because who's going to bother you? Who's going to say anything? She partnered with community organizers. She had all this opportunity to do that. I love the fact that she was a Red Sox fan. I love the fact that she wore the first, Red Sox headband to the
Boston Symphony.
Yeah. And because the Boston Symphony Orchestra during that time was just like,
and this is pre-Fenway Red Sox. This is when baseball was like a bunch of hooligans loved baseball.
Right,
you know what I mean? Like, and that's amazing. And my favorite thing is her stipulation that anybody named Isabella comes to the museum for free, which is still true today. Yeah. So if your name is Isabella, you go to the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum for free. I love just those little touches, those flourishes that you hear about in her life.
She knew that art was meant to challenge.
Yes.
And
educate and enjoy.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Accessible.
And she really, when she was bringing art that the United States had never seen, and she was bringing it here to Boston, it was very clear that she was literally thinking outside the box. And then you go inside this museum, there's her house, which is just a big box.
Right.
And you see what the fruits of her labor were.
And she created it for that. Talk about cultural equity and her civic leadership.
You're exactly
we
right.
need more of that. That was amazing.
So speaking of, she obviously a patron of the arts and somebody who takes her privilege and builds a museum and, talks about even in her time, the idea there was to bring more access to people. New York City, when we look at how are we funding the arts today, really kind of taking a step forward. In a budgetary twist, the 11th hour, after looking like a bunch of funding was going to be on the chopping block, seems Eric Adams, the mayor of New York City, doubles down, signs off on a record $254 million in the city budget for culture.
Amazing. Especially when he had cut all of these programs, right? He had cut all of these programs from the city budget. I find it fascinating being at Mass Cultural and talking about budgets, but I do think that people are coming back to that, right? It's very interesting because they talk about how people work. It's going to put people to work. It's going to help people, find all these extraordinary cultural programs. There was a quote that said, "We know that culture inspires individuals, strengthens communities, and drives the economy. And no other record city investment is as important as this sector." This is amazing. It's in the country. This is the largest amount of money given to an arts and culture.
Definitely a hat tip to Eric Adams on that front, because he knows that art, and as we said, art is meant to challenge, but art is also meant to educate.
Yes.
And that is exactly what that $254 million
But
will do.
also, art can be good for your economy. And I think one of the things that I'm really going to be interested in watching this is to see when more money went in, does the impact then sort of double, triple down? We talk about, and in New York City they do a lot about like saying here was the dollar amount, here's the economic impact that the arts brought to this city. What's going to happen when these cultural institutions are funded a little bit better?
And what is that going to do for the people that are living in these 5 boroughs? How is that going to change? Is it for them? Is it bringing tourism? Is it that it's going to be very interesting to see how that money is used?
We'll definitely keep an eye on it. Probably a future topic for a future follow-up Friday, which by the way is coming up next. So we're going to step away for a second, but we'll be back with Follow-Up Friday, where we bring you up to speed on the stories that we've been tracking here on The Culture Show. That's next. Stay with us.
The Culture Show is made possible in part by a generous contribution from the Fiducia Fund, proud to support this station's arts and culture programming.
All summer long, GBH News explores Boston's busing legacy. How has it shaped our city?
It's super important just to dive into this from a present perspective.
Features editor Jennifer Moore.
To shine a light in places it hasn't been shown before. That's really what we're trying to do with the storytelling that we're diving into now and over the next several months.
Boston Busing at 50. Find the stories at gbhnews.org/busing.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you and the Museum of Science with Survival of the Slowest, a new live animal exhibit that demonstrates evolution down the path less traveled. MOS.org. And South Coast Artists, presenting their 21st annual Open Studio Tour July 20th and 21st in Tiverton and Little Compton, Rhode Island, and Dartmouth and Westport, Massachusetts. You can download the tour brochure at southcoastartists.org.
In Russia, the number of Americans arrested on false charges has gone up in recent years, and journalists like Alsu Kormasheva are commonly targeted.
She is innocent. She is in jail because of her American citizenship.
We'll hear from the families of some of those detainees next time on The World.
This afternoon at 3, here on GBH News 89.7.
Welcome back to The Culture Show, broadcasting live from our GBH studio at the Boston Public Library. If you are just joining us, it's our Arts and Culture Week in Review. And it's Friday, which on The Culture Show means this.
It's time for Follow-Up Friday. Follow-Up Friday. Follow-Up Friday.
Yes, it's time for Follow-Up Friday with the latest developments on some of the ongoing stories we've been covering, and that includes Alec Baldwin's now dismissed manslaughter trial. We were actually talking about this last week when news came down that there was a development in the courtroom and they had paused things because this new evidence had been introduced. The judge eventually looks at that and then dismisses the case because it had not been disclosed. So Alec Baldwin has now walked free. And on the heels of that, this week, the lawyers for Hannah Gutierrez-Reed, who is the armorer who is serving an 18-month sentence, they're asking now for a new trial or for her to be released. What do we make of all of this?
That's what a good attorney will do.
Yeah, I mean, fair enough.
What, get you off
Yes.
or get you a new trial?
Just take any opportunity
and
to be
get
like,
you a new trial.
Yeah, I mean, this is a pretty big deal for Alec Baldwin.
It's
that he's
a huge deal, and it's with prejudice,
these.
which means he can't get. It's done. It's over. I mean, I think it's true. I think that they should be looking to dismiss the other case. I mean, why not? I think that maybe they'll find something else. It was just a really horrible, terrible thing that ever happened. Right. It never should have happened. Somebody lost their life. And just to have to go through that all over again, and the family to have to go through that all over again, I think is horrible. But I think you're right. I think it's he got off. The
judge clearly made the right call.
Yes,
the judge made the right call, and it was because of the case that his attorney made.
Another thing that we've been following pretty closely here on The Culture Show, I think in part because we all love Outkast and we love Andre 3000, half of Outkast. And we spent some time earlier this year when he released an album that was a little unlike anything he had done before. Of course, he's well known as part of this hip-hop outfit Outkast. I mean, folks will say that he is one of the better rappers that's ever been out there, but he has taken a hard turn to the jazz flute or the flute in general. Let's actually, before we talk about what happened this week, let's hear a little from his album where he's featuring the flute. Now, the name of this tune is That Night in Hawaii When I Turned into a Panther and Started Making These Low-Register Purring Tones That I Couldn't Control, ... It Was Wild.
Yeah.
That's the name of this. So what happened this week, and I love this, is Andre 3000 appeared on The Shop, which is an HBO show with LeBron James and Maverick Carter, and he basically said, I don't want people to think that I'm trying to be a jazz musician. He called himself a sonic displayist and then basically said, to be completely honest with you, I don't know what I'm playing on the flute. I don't know what notes I'm playing.
I believe it's clearly obvious. I mean, but anybody who grew up in the 70s and listened to Captain Beefheart, who couldn't play a note to save his life, knows that you can craft it into something
without knowing the notes. Right, exactly. But what I love about this is that he's trying something new. I had the privilege of interviewing him for when he was...
You did?
Yes, when he was in a film, and he's just so wonderful. I mean, one of the best rappers, yes, but also a beautiful human being. So one of the things that I heard him talk about too is that he's just not ready to get back to rap. He lost his parents. He's in this whole other phase of his life where he's, trying out new things. And as a musician and as a brilliant musician, he can do that and he can get away with that. And I know that, I think we talked about this before. People were like, where's the words on your like there's no words on this, and he's like, because this is where I'm at right now. This is where I am. This is where I feel in my space. And if you do listen to it, it is very sort of like calming, and it's very sort of like
it is.
I really like the album.
I know,
to be honest with you, it's kind of great.
And I just want to say this one quote that he said: "The flute is the first instrument where I actually heard a musical tone or note, and it is the closest to the human voice out of all instruments." I thought that was pretty special.
That's really special. It seems to me like he's been listening to John Laurie from the Lounge Lizards, or John Zorn, because it's got that avant-garde feel to it.
Mythical.
Yeah.
Well, if you haven't checked it out, he did this excellent thing along with the release of that album, which he put a Spotify playlist out that was all of these different kind of things that he had been listening to that inspired that. And like what I love about him is, and many musicians are like this, but he is a musical omnivore.
Right.
I mean, like when you listen to him talk about the music he likes, it's wide ranging, it's interesting. Some of it you've heard, some of it you've never heard of, and like I love somebody who's leading us on a path of discovery. So
you do that with dance.
Well, thank you, Henry. I try.
Just for a little known fact that Edgar is a phenomenal dancer.
Look out now! Yep. Look out! All right, now.
Hey, wait, that's not in the Friday. Oh, wait, there it is.
Let's not worry about that. Right
I like to say he's EBH on GBH.
Okay, a week from today, will be, speaking of dancing, breakdancing will be one of the things in the Olympics. The Olympics are going to begin in a week, and as far as the internet is concerned this week, the Olympics have already been won by Mongolia because of their outfits for the opening ceremonies.
I love these outfits. It's fashion to the umpteenth degree. They're attractive, they're fashionable, they're functional. There's a Japanese designer who I've been following for years and years, and I actually have a lot of his clothes. Yoshi Yamamoto is his name, and he is just it's all about fabrics and it's all about texture, and that's what these Mongolian outfits are all about.
Yeah, I mean, what I love about them is that, and what more and more they're using more and more of their own artists to do this, but again, it comes back to the whole thing about storytelling. They're using these outfits to really say this is who we are and to tell those stories. Haiti's doing it too with their bright colors, and
the Haiti uniforms are so
off the hook,
so cool. That's beautiful. Haitian Italian designer Stella Jean, and partnering with a Haitian painter, and taking a work from this Haitian painter and using it on both a pair of pants for the male athletes and a skirt for the female athletes.
And same with Nigeria,
It's so cool.
And that's what I love, is like people going to that extra step so that you really get to see everyone in their cultural space.
Brings us right back again to the world of art. Fashion is art.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Although the USA, for I think the 15th year now, going with Ralph Lauren design, I would call what they're wearing this year sort of 90s prep school. They've got light wash jeans with a blue blazer.
Can that horse get any bigger?
No. I think it's like a 99-year lease. Is that up yet? I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. Finally, one of the things that we love to keep our eyes on here are art hijinks. Also, something that we've covered a lot is troubles at the British Museum, and those things come together this week with a story that has emerged out of the UK. Henry, why don't you tell us about this?
Brazilian artist, and I think his name is Ilie Sartuzzi. He went into a museum, British Museum. Yeah, in London, and he very systematically stole a very rare an old coin that had been on display in the museum.
British coin
that had been on display, and he didn't leave the museum with it.
So technically not stealing it.
So well, he did take it out of its rightful spot, but he put it in the museum's donation box. And they, and he called the exhibit his sleight of hand art project.
Right, because he made a film of it. He took his, this was all planned out. It took like a year, right, to plan this out. He brought his buddies with him because this was part of his thesis, and then they filmed it and did a short film called Sleight of Hand. I think this is hysterical. We've talked about the toilet that was stolen. Also, we talked about that. And it's not hijinks. It's sort of a way to say, look, and it was like the only British, it's sort of saying museums have all of these artifacts from all over the place, right? That you shouldn't really have. And here they take the only British origin one that's on display. They take it. It was sort of like the tide pool at the aquarium, where you have visitors can come in and touch art with the volunteers. So the head of the museum is like, now I can't believe you've done this to the volunteers, and now it's just changing the whole system. And what does he say? He says the problem of universal museums is that it's a foundational part of the colonial imperialist system, and the coin he stole was the only one that was on display. This is the issue, pushing that envelope. These artists are pushing that envelope of colonialism in museums.
He was also totally committed to this. He tried the day before and basically got caught by one of the volunteer people that were in that gallery. So he shaves his beard and goes back the next day so he's not recognized in order to pull this off.
And it worked.
Yeah, and another thing he's pointing out here, and we've talked about this and partly why this is on Follow-Up Friday, there seems to be many issues at the British Museum, one of which is half of their collection is not even cataloged.
Right.
This is among those things that are not cataloged, and he seems to be making a point about that as well.
Yes, exactly. We need more of those. Oh.
And there it is. A bolt of lightning. And that bolt of lightning means it is the lightning round. This is where we take a moment and talk about one of the stories that struck each of us this week. Henry Santoro, what caught your eye?
Well, it's happening at Fenway Park, and it happened last night, and it's going to happen tonight as well. The Red Sox, of course, are in Los Angeles this weekend for a series with the Angels.
Post-All-Star break.
And so what do you do when you've got an empty Fenway Park?
You have a concert.
I bet you have a concert, Henry?
You have a concert, but you have one of the hottest acts. I would go out on a limb and say that Noah Kahan.
Oh yes, I've heard it. Yep.
Is second only to Taylor Swift right now.
Bold claim.
Wow,
bold claim.
He is massive, and he played last night at Fenway Park. The tickets for both of these shows sold out in literally minutes. And when Noah Kahan first emerged about 5 or 6 years ago, he put 30 seconds of his song "Stick Season" on his Instagram.
Okay.
It had, in no time at all, it had 30 million views. 30 seconds of the song had 30 million views. Stick Season has now been streamed more than 1 billion times.
Wow.
It's one song that had put him on the map, but his music is infectious. Last year, a friend of mine said, Noah Kahan is playing at the Boston Calling Music Festival.
Right.
You should go see him. And so I went that day, and I was hanging out in the media tent, and I said to one of my PR friends, I said, is Noah going to come into the media tent? And she said to me, she pointed to it, the corner, she said, you see that guy sitting in that chair all by himself? That's Noah Kahan.
Yeah.
And so I said, come with me. I took my phone out.
He clearly doesn't know he's second only to Taylor Swift.
Right. Now he does, because he's going to get this tape.
Oh, it's huge. I want photos.
All right.
And I got to chat with him for, maybe 15, 20 minutes. I was the only person that had interest in him. But when he took the stage at Boston Calling, there were 40,000 people in the audience. They knew every single word to every single song, and some of those songs hadn't even been released yet.
Wow.
They were only available online.
But this is the whole YouTube. This is all being as an artist. This is part of your whole PR and your marketing.
If you don't know who Noah Kahan is, Kahan.
Right.
You gotta Google him, and you gotta see what the magic that this guy is doing. And now,
there you go. There's everybody's homework for this weekend.
And hopefully you can still get tickets.
Last night he had the Lumineers open for him.
Oh, okay.
Tonight he has, the rumor is that Hosier is going to be called out because Hosier is around and he doesn't have any gigs lined up.
So
you
suspicious.
know a lot about this.
I do.
Henry's in on this.
I have 25,000 albums at home.
Okay. I don't.
Among them Hosier and Noah Kahn.
Well, my lightning is also music. It's Adele. Adele is taking a break from music.
This is a huge deal.
She will reach her 100th final show in November in Las Vegas. She's like, I'm done. I want a big break. I don't know what I want to do. Maybe she'll pick up the flute. I don't know. But she says, I don't even sing at home anymore. That's how she's feeling. She said, I'm 36 years old. I'm getting grumpy. So she just said, I think, that's a lot. And she said Las Vegas was great. Some shows went well, some shows didn't. But that wasn't it.
That's got to be a grind.
It's a grind.
Isn't this her second break?
This is her. Yeah. But I think
the first one she had a baby.
She had a baby, but I really do think this is going to be a long break for her.
Are you generally an Adele fan?
I am.
Yeah.
I am an Adele fan.
So you're not happy about this break?
Well, I mean, you always have her music, right? So
That's
it's
true.
not like maybe I could go to fly to Las Vegas. I'm probably better off going to Fenway Park maybe tonight, or at least standing outside.
Well, my lightning round is not about music. Mine is about the city of Copenhagen, which is trying the carrot as opposed to the stick when it comes to tourists. So they've rolled out a new thing this week. This is a pilot program where if tourists or visitors demonstrate certain kind of climate-friendly behavior, they get rewarded with things like museum tours, free kayak rentals, free meals, etc. So basically, there are 24 attractions in the city that are taking place in it, and examples are if you go surfing at this particular beach, if you do 30 minutes of beach cleanup after you're done surfing, you get a free meal from this local restaurant.
That's awesome.
Another one is there's an artificial ski slope where if you arrive by train or bike, you can go down the slope for free.
Wow,
this is an attempt to try to get better behavior from folks who are visiting. There was a 2023 sustainability study from a London-based market research group, and I find this to be pretty not surprising, but it really draws a line under it. They say on average, 81% of consumers say they want to do things to be more sustainable, but only 22% have actually done anything to change their behavior. So we'll see what happens in Copenhagen.
But this is great if you give them a reason to do it. At least they're not doing what Barcelona's doing and shooting everyone with water guns.
Exactly.
The tourists.
All right.
There's a reward for being good.
Right.
Novel idea. We'll see if it works. Well, that's it for the Culture Show. You can catch up on all things arts and culture by way of our podcasts, which you can find on Apple, Spotify, wherever it is that you get your podcasts. GBH News host Henry Santoro, Culture Show contributor Lisa Simmons, artistic and executive director of the Roxbury International Film Festival, and program manager at the Mass Cultural Council. Thank you both for being with us here at the library today.
Always a pleasure.
Where did the hour go?
And our thanks to the BPL technical and logistics crew, Maddie Geyer, Bill Francis, Sandra Lopez-Burke, Juan Jose Cadena Dueñas, Chris Hanks, Amanda Francis, and our thanks to City Table, the Lennox Hotel, and the Newsfeed Cafe, as well as the Culture Show team and all of the folks who came down to see us here at the Boston Public Library. You too can do that, by the way. Just stop on by next Friday and see us. I'm Edgar B. Herwick III. Have a great weekend.
The Culture Show is made possible in part by a generous contribution from the Fiducia Fund, proud to support this station's arts and culture programming.
Where's Mary? Where is she? Where is she? She's just about to close up the library.
Spend your
Woods Hole, WJMF-FM HD1 Smithfield, Providence, and at classical.org.
Well, there are sea breezes and low humidity. This is the stuff we were dreaming about in February. Hope you have a chance to get out. Take us along with you. Download our app and bring the music with you as you take that long walk. We're in for a few days of this good stuff. It looks like the Muggies are going to start creeping back in on Monday. I'm Kathy Fuller here for Greg Farisi. Coming up in 5 minutes, Mussorgsky's amazing pictures at an exhibition with the Minnesota Orchestra. And right now, it's flutist Jean-Pierre Rampal and friends in Telemann's first scherzo.